Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the FNAF fan games that accomplished far more than anyone expected. Whether they were created by small teams, first-time developers, or started as humble projects, these games completely exceeded expectations. Some of these ended up becoming some of the most impressive fan games the community has ever seen, so let's dive into them.
I've covered a lot of games made by the developers in the Five Nights at Freddy's Fanverse initiative. I've covered the fantastic Joy of Creation made by Nixon, the famous Five Nights at Candy's by Emil Mako, and I've covered the gorgeous One Night at Flumpty's by Groomer Jonachrome. For the most part, I've enjoyed all of these games, but there is still one game in the initiative I have yet to cover, Pop Goes by Kane Carter. Another incredibly well-known FNAF fan game with a lot of people having a sweet spot for it. Today, I'm here to find out why. Stick around because I've got a lot to say about it. As mentioned, Pop Goes was created by Kane Carter and was released to the public on June 26, 2016. Immediately, it got a lot of recognition, with FNAF fan games definitely being popular at the time, but it was still new to find a game that remotely matched the quality of the originals. And Pop Goes 100% did. The game shares lore in continuity to the official Five Nights at Freddy's games. However, it does retcon everything FNAF 4 onwards, meaning in order to understand the lore, we have to think only about FNAF 1 through 3. With that key detail out of the way, let's get all around the cobbler's bench and right into Pop Goes. A lot of FNAF fan games like to have an opening cutscene, but not Pop Goes. This game will already get you on your toes by not even showing you the standard newspaper, just jumping right into night 1, wiping its balls all over my forehead. Fantastic. Something you'll notice immediately is the way that Pop Goes handles the office. It's honestly probably the coolest office I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. It actually comes out of this game harder than you gooners come out of the closet. While in the office, which is hard to even call an office honestly, you will be able to look 360 degrees all around you, with 4 different directions to look in, all serving a different purpose. Although I will admit one of them doesn't really have any reason for existing, but we'll get into that later. Starting directly in front of us, we have our cameras, which are controlled by our phone, and some colorful buttons. Since this is where we'll be spending most of our time, I'll talk about this a bit later. Turning to our left, we can actually see one of the animatronics, and it's at this moment it becomes apparent that we are not in an office, but are rather just in a giant-ass room in the restaurant. This character's name is Blake the Badger, but he's harmless on this night, so as I've already said multiple times, we'll talk about him later. Turn left again to look behind us, and we'll be able to see the actual fucking stage where all the characters are. Holy shit, my butthole just puckered and my penis just retracted up inside of my body. We are literally constantly next to almost every animatronic in the entire game. You might think that'll make just about everything in this game useless, since they're already pretty much free to grab up on us, but as you'll learn throughout this video, these guys have a very, how should I say this, retarded thought process. Finally, turning once more to the left, we can see a window to the parking lot, with a bird character standing outside. We'll talk about what he does later, but for right now, I want to talk about what actual purpose this window serves. On the bottom of the screen, you will see a panic meter. Naturally, throughout the night, it will rise, and looking at animatronics will cause this panic meter to rise faster. In order to make it decrease, you'll need to look to the right at the window. I guess looking outside makes you remember how much you enjoy touching grass. Just kidding. Being outside is scary, and it's summer right now, so it's really fucking hot. I'd rather die than go out there. Fun fact, as I'm writing this script, I'm not wearing a shirt because of how blazing hot it is, even though it's only 9:45 p.m. What kind of bullshit is this? Why is it so goddamn hot where I live? This shit is ass. Oh, and by the way, as I'm recording this, it's currently 11:48 p.m. and it's somehow gotten even hotter. Also, by the way, put your dick back in your pants, you're not going to see me shirtless, and stop imagining it too. I already know how weird you fucking freaks are. Yes, I read the comments. Behave. Anyways, if your panic meter increases all the way, you'll be unable to do literally anything. That includes turning to look in any direction, and Pop Goes will very quickly dig in your butt. Want to hear a really cool fact about this? Turns out I'm actually the most retarded person on the face of the planet Earth. The phone guy explicitly describes that if we're feeling panicked to look outside. I swear to you, I had no fucking idea that the window to our right was a window to the outside. I knew it was a window, but for some reason I couldn't tell that it was to the outside of the building. I thought it was just another room inside the building, and I think the reason I thought that was because the animatronic could be seen through it, and I didn't think that they'd place an animatronic outside. But that still doesn't make sense, because what I thought you had to do was look at camera 10, which is a camera out in the parking lot. While this does seem to decrease your panic very slowly, I thought it was going to be impossible to beat this game because of how slowly it dropped. Again, keep in mind, I can see the crow animatronic in this camera, and it took borderline until night 3 for me to notice that yes, that window is outside, and by looking out of it, my panic will decrease a fuck ton faster. Looks like the panic meter don't exactly work very well though, bro. Like, look, I keep fucking jumping back up and shit. What am I supposed to do with this panic meter, bro? It like doesn't go down consistently at all. Dude, this is bullshit. What the fuck are you supposed to do? That's not possible. What the hell is that bullshit? What? What's the point of turning except to see? Like, what's the point of this? Like this area. Wait, that's the... Oh! I'm retarded. This is the fucking parking lot. He means literally... Guys, I'm actually fucking retarded. Holy shit, guys. I'm a fucking idiot. Oh my god. That has to be actually the fucking stupidest thing I've ever done in my whole life. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about our camera system. Looking at it at a first glance may seem a bit intimidating, but this game actually does a fantastic job at slowly introducing new mechanics. It's actually probably better at this than any other FNAF game I've ever played before. Let's just focus on what needs to be focused on during night 1 and ignore everything else until it becomes relevant. Obviously, you can switch through the cameras like any FNAF game, and the cameras in this game use no power. In fact, this game doesn't even have power to begin with, which I think is something we can all appreciate. The only other thing on the cameras we need to worry about is the room shutdown button. This button does exactly what you think it does, temporarily shuts down the power to a specific room. You'll notice you can only use this button on cameras that have this weird device on them, and if you can't tell what this is, it's a 3D printer. Why are there 3D printers here? Well, canonically, I'm pretty sure it's because the kids that come to the restaurant can print out their own animatronics or something like that. I don't really know. I was more focused on the phone guy talking about his boring ass life. I wasn't really paying attention to the actual story of the game very much. Where these 3D printers come into play during gameplay is when we talk about our boy, Pop Goes the Weasel. Yes, we are actually introducing the main character of the game on night 1, something quite a few FNAF games don't like to do until later nights. Pop Goes will leave his stage and head towards any room with a 3D printer, which by the way you can actually turn around and watch him leave via walking through the very room you're sitting in. Remember how I said the characters in this game make some pretty retarded decisions? Yeah, this is one of them. If Pop Goes' goal is to kill me, why doesn't he just do it? He's literally directly behind me. It would not be hard at all. In fact, the only time he does kill you is when your panic meter gets too high. So, if he doesn't kill you himself, how is he a threat? Great question, and one I'm going to answer because, no shit, it'd be a pretty shitty review if I didn't explain anything. Once Pop Goes enters a room with a 3D printer, he will attempt to print out a piece of a character called the Black Rabbit. It's literally just Shadow Bonnie from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. In order to stop him, you will have to shut down the room he's in before he prints it. This will make the printer turn off and will make him leave to go find another one. After a few seconds, the power to the room will automatically come back on, so you don't have to worry about losing sight of the room forever. Pop Goes is completely relentless. The moment you shut down one room, it won't be long until he attacks another, which actually leads to a constant pressure gameplay loop. Typically something I would find unfun, but again, this game actually does it incredibly well, and I think it has everything to do with how well it introduces new mechanics. But back to Pop Goes. If you don't shut down the room fast enough, he will print out a piece of the Black Rabbit and walk back to the office. If you turn around, you can actually catch him placing the piece he printed out on the table behind you. If he prints out every piece, the Black Rabbit will become active and immediately kill you. I personally never died to the Black Rabbit, which goes to show either how easy this game is or how much fun I had playing it that I was able to find a rhythm. I should briefly mention how the phone calls in this game work, since they're also quite a bit different from most I've seen. Unfortunately, the phone guy is British. I know that should be given a warning in and of itself, but let's try to move past that tragedy. After getting the typical phone guy spiel, you're given 3 options for things to ask him, and whatever you choose will actually give you some branching dialogue, giving a small bit of replayability to each night. One option usually elaborates on a mechanic, another usually does some lore dumping, and the final is typically just some silly fun. Small details, I'm telling you. They're what make me appreciate games the most. But after beating night 1 in typical FNAF game fashion, we're tossed into a post-night 8-bit minigame to do some lore dumping. Except this game actually does it a little different than other games do. Each minigame takes place in the same area. This weird red maze-ass area. I have no idea what the floor is supposed to be made of, but let's ignore that. In this minigame, we play as Stone the Crow. This is the same character that stands outside of your window in the parking lot, by the way. Each character you play as in this minigame will have a different path you need to follow, and a different item you can interact with. This is the route you need to take as Stone. Following this path will lead you to a balloon boy chained up. Once you see him, the minigame ends. However, if you want to get one of the special endings in this game, there is something you need to do first. In each minigame, you will be able to find a secret character named Simon. Once you find him, you will be transformed into what I'm going to call a purified version of the character. Once purified, if you head over to the balloon boy, instead of the game just ending, you'll actually be able to free him from his shackles. This will happen in every minigame, just with different paths and characters. Additionally, if you interact with Balloon Boy's hat before you reach his room, a short cutscene will play. And by cutscene, I mean a single fucking drawing. But hey, that's cool, I suppose. As far as I'm aware, looking at these drawings doesn't aid in getting you a special ending, just some fun extra lore to find. Night 2 introduces 2 new characters, except they both do the exact same thing at the exact same time in the exact same way, so they're basically only one character. Those characters being Saffron and Sarah the Squirrels, aka this game's gooning material. Get your Jergens out, or just use your hand if you have foreskin because your parents don't love you. Saffron and Sarah, like Pop Goes, can be seen on stage directly behind you. They too would prefer to do something incredibly complicated and retarded rather than just blow your back out from behind like any normal attacker would do in this situation. They introduce a new mechanic, your vents. As I'm sure you could guess from me saying that, these 2 travel through your vents in an attempt to drop down on you and sit on your face, which is exactly why I never stopped them. Anyways, you can toggle your vent camera on a majority of cameras around the building. Think of the map as a big roundabout these 2 have to go around. They start in camera 8, then go to 6, then 3, then 1, then 2, then 5, then 7, and finally arrive at your office. So you have plenty of time to stop them. But be warned, once they travel into a new vent, they will never go back under any circumstance. So really make sure you stay on top of them. Personally, I'm into femdoms, so I prefer to be on the bottom of them. But that's really not important. When you spot them in your vents, you must turn on your vent heater, which will cause lasers of all things to shoot down in the vent, blocking their path. The phone guy tells you that these lasers will stay on for 1 minute, except this game has a crazy twist, and the twist is that he fucking lied. The lasers actually only stay on for 9 seconds. Not 10, 9. Fuck me, I didn't want to see a nice round number anyways. Don't fret, you don't actually have to keep track and count in your head, as on your cameras a heat symbol will appear whenever your lasers are active, meaning that as long as you know how to use your eyes, you'll always be able to tell whether or not your lasers are on without constantly having to toggle vent to check. Kane could have easily not put this heat symbol in the game, and without changing any mechanics, it would have made it a fuckload more difficult. But Kane cares about video game balancing, and I really respect him for that. If the squirrels get all the way through the vent, they will appear in the vent directly above your head. If you look up, you'll be able to see them peeking down at you. Much like Pop Goes, these girls actually never attack you. Instead, what they do is snatch up your phone like a frat boy snatches up Easy Cooter. Obviously, without your phone, you won't be able to switch cameras, meaning Pop Goes will be free to build up the black rabbit and you'll be done for. However, it's much more likely that your rapidly climbing panic meter will get you killed first. Anyways, on to the post-night minigame. This time we play as Saffron and we're tasked with finding Toy Freddy. Very similar to last night, we can find Simon, become purified, and free Toy Freddy from his shackles. Oh yeah, and additionally can view another picture with some loud-ass music playing as well. Lore or something! Also, by the way, here's the path you need to take. Night 3 introduces one new threat, Blake the Badger. However, I first want to talk about a threat I haven't mentioned thus far, Stone the Crow. He actually has two different attacks, one that becomes active early in the game and one that doesn't become active until a later night. Both of his attacks are actually the most threatening and annoying out of any character in the entire game. Crazy how one character can have multiple ass-erupting problems that I hate. His early attack has him just be an annoying prick. He will occasionally appear on your cameras and block your entire view. This prevents you from seeing pop goes, which is obviously not great. But if that wasn't enough, when you look at him, your panic meter actually increases way faster than normal. And want to know the coolest part? The higher your panic, the more commonly he appears on your cameras. That's a fucking wombo combo if I've ever seen one before. Holy shit. Leave my poor anus alone. It's had enough. In order to make him stop appearing on the cameras, you obviously have to lower your panic. Ironically, by staring at him out in the parking lot. Let's just pretend like that makes sense. Anyways, now I can talk about Blake the Badger, a character who is literally just fun. As I mentioned previously, Blake can be seen directly to your left. This, by the way, is the direction that is pretty much useless to look in. Along with seeing Blake, you can also see the door to the server room in this direction. If you look this way long enough, you'll see Blake walk into this server room. You can view the server room on your cameras where you can see Blake present. This camera is one of the reasons why watching him move real time doesn't matter, because you'll be checking the cameras consistently anyways. Blake has you play Simon Says. Hey, Simon! Like the guy in the minigames. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Once Blake is in the server room, he will set the monitor inside to a certain color. On your desk, you will see 5 different buttons, each with a differently colored circle on them. What you need to do is click the circle that's the same color as the monitor in the server room, and then press the Blake button next to your monitor to call him over so we can check if you chose correctly. When you call him, by the way, he will literally come right up to you. If you turn to the left, you will see him staring right at you, which kinda startled me the first time I saw it. If you got the colors right, he won't attack you and will go back to minding his own business. Get it wrong and you're obviously fucked. Want to hear another reason why looking to the left is not worth it? Well, if Blake happens to be there because he's checking on your color, if you look at him, your panic meter will increase drastically. So there is literally never a good reason to look to your left. Ever. So just don't. Night 3's post-night minigame has you play as Sarah. I'm sure you can already guess what you need to do. Find Simon, become fearified, and find my wife Toy Chica and free her from her shackles, and then let her use those shackles on me so she can have her way with me. But let's leave Chica and I alone while you guys move on to Night 4. Oh yeah, and here's the path. Night 4's new threat is Stone the Crow. While yes, I've already established his camera blocking threat, that's not the only threat he has, as I've already mentioned. This is the night where his much more annoying problem arises. If you are to look out of the window for too long, Stone will turn his head towards you and, I'm not joking, make the most ear-piercing, skull-fucking degrading screech I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm not lying. It's actually the loudest noise in the whole game, and it scared the fuck out of me every single time I heard it. Oh, for fuck. My goddamn ears, bro. When he turns his head at you, your panic meter will increase faster than anything else that causes it to increase. Like, I'm talking fast as fuck. Usain Bolt type shit. Obviously, turning away will cause him to stop staring, and you'll be able to look at him again to decrease your panic that he so rudely increased. This does bring up an interesting dilemma and will force you to come up with a new strategy when playing. You know that looking out the window for too long will cause him to look at you, but you also need to keep your panic empty so he doesn't appear on the cameras. So you need to figure out a proper way to both deal with Pop Goes, the squirrels, and Blake, while also looking out of the window frequently enough to not cause Stone to look at you, while also keeping your panic meter completely empty so he doesn't appear on the cameras. Because once your pattern breaks, it will be very difficult and stressful to get yourself back on track. Night 4's post-night minigame has you play as Blake. Here's the path you have to follow to get to Mangle, but remember to find Simon and purify yourself first. I'll never understand the attraction some people have to Mangle. I don't even see how sex with her would be fun. She's a fucked up mess of wires. Even if you could figure out how to get it done, you'd borderline have to be a contortionist in order to not get yourself injured while doing the deed. Anyways, on to Night 5. Night 5 doesn't introduce any new threat, just being a harder version of Night 4, so I'll use this time to talk about Simon and how he appears in the nights. That's right, Simon himself does appear in each night, however, I never saw him throughout my playthrough, which you can find on my second channel, Dexter Black, and that's because of how specific finding him is. Each night he will appear in a certain room at a certain time, only for a few seconds, which is why I never saw him. When you find him, you will need to click on one of your Simon Says buttons that corresponds to the color of his eyes. When you do, he will say something to you. I guess it being Simon Says wasn't a coincidence after all. On night 1, he will appear in the arcade's vent camera at the 526th second of the night. That's right, it's actually that specific. His eye color will be red and he will say the following.
Simon Says.
On night 2, he'll appear in the birthday room camera at the 116th second. His eyes will be pink and he'll say the following.
Keep finding me. I'll tell you everything.
On night 3, he'll appear in the parking lot camera on the 472nd second. His eyes will be blue and he'll say this.
Oh, brother. He must be so fond of him.
On night 4, he'll appear in the staff room at the 342nd second of the night. His eyes will be yellow and he'll say the following.
Do you think you know who he is? The truth is behind this door.
And at night 5, he'll appear in the hallway camera at the 273rd second of the night. His eyes will be green and he will say this.
He doesn't want to remember. We can help him tomorrow.
Overall, a pretty cool bit of extra lore in a very fun and interactive way. Again, I'm in love with little details like this. Also, here's another fun fact. If you stare at Simon's screen in the extras menu for too long, your game will crash, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, onto the post-night minigame. Here you play as Pop Goes. Here's the path you have to take to find the worst FNAF character ever designed, Toy Bonnie. And as always, don't forget to find Simon and purify yourself. God, I fucking hate Toy Bonnie. He's the main reason why Five Nights at Freddy's 2 sucks as much dick and balls as it does. I know people have found a way to make 1020 mode not random, but fuck you. He's still a bag of dicks. Night 6 once again adds no new threats, just being the hardest non-custom night in the entire game, really amping up the game's difficulty. I want to talk about two things during this night. This game does probably the best job I've seen at making a challenging experience without being frustrating, janky, or awkward. This night is definitely hard, requiring you to be precise with your mouse, quick with your thinking, and requiring a lot of nerve control throughout. But never throughout my playthrough did I feel like the game was unfair or that there was too much RNG involved. This game is a perfect balance of challenging and engaging. I've truly never seen another FNAF game pull it off as well as this game has. Additionally, Simon can be found on this night as well. I didn't talk about it last night because the way you find him in this night is without a doubt one of the coolest things in the whole game. He'll appear in the station on the 273rd second of the night. You might be wondering what the station is, and the station is literally the room you are sitting in. Simon will appear on the table directly behind you. He leans in so close you can feel his breath on the nape of your neck. It might turn some people on, but it personally makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. Anyways, his eyes will be white and he'll say the following.
He wants to save her, and I will make his wish come true. Thank you, Strings.
If you've done everything correctly in the post-night minigame so far, you'll be put into the 6th night post-night minigame where you play as the Black Rabbit. Finding Simon, you'll realize he looks different, appearing to be glitching as the purple guy, and upon purifying, you seem to become Spring Bonnie, implying that either Simon has been William Afton the whole time, or that Pop Goes has been trying to construct William Afton the whole time. Continuing forward, you find a man and kill him. This man being Fritz, or Jeremy Fitzgerald, the phone guy who's been talking to us throughout the nights. Hold the fuck up. The phone guy has been Jeremy Fitzgerald, aka the person we play as in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Again, keep in mind that anything that happens in the official FNAF games from the 4th game and beyond are not canon in Pop Goes. Throughout the game, Fritz talks about an accident he had at Freddy's, never going into specific detail as to what it was. I'm going to take a guess he was either the Bite of 87 victim or the Bite of 83 victim, since he also mentioned that he used to work for Freddy's. You might think that it can't be the bite of 87 because we already know that that was a child, and Fritz mentions that the accident happened when he was a teenager. But again, remember that we learned it was a child in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which isn't canon to this game, so it could be up in the air. If you have a better idea, or you know I'm wrong as fuck, let me know in the comments. I love reading your guys' corrections. During the last night of this game, Fritz asks us a question. Would we forgive someone who did something terrible, given that we've known the person for a long time? Then, instead of getting to ask him a question at the end of the call like every other night, we're instead only given the option of selecting yes or no, with no response given after our answer. I'm going to assume that this hypothetical question is about William Afton after he did what he did to the children. Fritz mentions earlier in the call that he feels like William probably had a good reason to do what he did. Fritz knew William and didn't want to believe he killed the kids with no good reason. I think he asks us that question in an attempt to make himself not feel so alone in wanting to forgive him. After killing Fritz in the final minigame, one last cutscene plays out. We're back in our office and we watch as Simon approaches us and stares deep into our eyes, making us fall in love. No, I'm kidding. I mean, he does stare at us, but I highly doubt it's for that reason. And with that, we get the grave ending. As far as I'm aware, this game's version of a true ending. And that's where Pop Goes comes to a close. Overall, I actually love this game. Originally going into it, I was nervous that this video was going to be another hit piece like Jolly, but I was actually very pleasantly surprised when it turned out to be a very enjoyable experience. I truly think that this game has the best difficulty balancing of any FNAF game I've ever played. Each mechanic feels solid and has great synergy with every other mechanic, without having the game feel unfair and overwhelming while still providing a satisfying challenge. The story isn't too convoluted, and there's not a lot of garbage hoops to jump through to be able to experience it, which for someone like me, who dreads learning the lore in games, can really appreciate. Because of all of these reasons, I'm placing Pop Goes in my top 10 favorite FNAF games of all time. I honestly really enjoyed my time with this game, and I highly recommend all of you give it a try. You won't regret it. Also, I'm aware that Pop Goes is getting a remake, and I'm incredibly excited to review that when it comes out. I have been very critical of Steel Wool ever since the release of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. For those of you somehow unaware, Steel Wool is the company behind Security Breach and both of the FNAF VR games. Something interesting about that is that the VR games are very good and Security Breach is a dumpster fire. Why? Well, Steel Wool is a company that specializes in VR, and if you've never been on the internet before, Security Breach is not a VR game, which probably plays a part into why it's so utterly terrible. So, with Steel Wool announcing their new non-FNAF VR game, Secret of the Mimic, I had my standards so low to the ground it was in the Earth's core. I've recently played through the entire game on stream on my second channel, Dexter Black. Upon completion, my conclusion was that the game was actually pretty good, and I ended up giving the game a 7 out of 10. Now pause! I beat the whole game in one 7-hour sitting, and if you were to have asked me 7 hours earlier if I would have given this game a 7 out of 10, I would have definitely said no. So, how did we get here? Why did I rate it this way? And the most important question of all, did Steel Wool learn from their mistakes in Security Breach? Let's begin with the opening of the game. We're in a Fazbear Entertainment van driving to a rundown factory that was previously owned by Edwin Murray, his costume factory, Murray's Costume Manor. We're told by the Fazbear Entertainment dispatcher over the phone that we have to go inside and retrieve a few things from one of our contractors, Edwin Murray. Upon entering the building, we're greeted to an opening show that's a little bit broken, probably because of how old and run down this building is. It is here where we learn two incredibly essential game mechanics. One, cranking a lever. This may seem stupid, but I promise you will be cranking levers in this game more than any other task, so really get used to it. And maybe learn that you need to crank the lever clockwise, not counterclockwise. I'll get to that a little bit later. The other major mechanic taught here is our door key. Think of this not really as a key, but more of a key card. On it, you'll see a display of 6 symbols. Each symbol acts as a different entry-level pass, and of course, at the beginning of the game, we only have the first. Next to many doors, there will be a keyhole with a glowing symbol that indicates which level of entry is required to open the door. Very simple mechanic. I'm sure I actually didn't even need to explain all that, but let's move on. Continuing into the next room, we get a great glance at one of my favorite parts of this game, the level of fear it initially invokes. There are several empty costumes throughout this giant building, and I mean several, like a shit ton, a fuckload. Not only are just seeing them around cool, but since the Mimic can enter any suit, and for a large majority of the game, the Mimic is the only actual threat to you, at any moment, any of the costumes you see could get up and begin to move. When I first heard of this mechanic before the game was released, I was actually really turned off to the idea, just from knowing how Steel Wool handled wandering animatronics in Security Breach. For those who don't know, in Security Breach, there are also several wandering animatronics that exist solely to piss me off. A lot of that game has you sneakily maneuvering around these characters as to not be seen. However, in Security Breach, Steel Wool had not figured out how to make good character AI whatsoever. The characters in Security Breach think much more like an AI than an actual real-life threat, which I guess technically makes sense, but it isn't actually fun as a gameplay experience. If getting chased by a character, you turn a corner and hide, the animatronic will more than likely be able to guess where you are and kill you. This is not fun. Imagine you're being chased by someone or something in real life. If you turn a corner and hide without them seeing where, the chances of them knowing where you are immediately are pretty much zero. This is why chases in Security Breach aren't fun. Another reason Security Breach characters fucking suck? Animatronic spawning habits. I stated that the characters wander around. However, I neglected to mention that they will always wander somewhere near the player. For example, if the animatronic is in one room and you move to a room that is a very far distance away from the room the animatronic is in, it obviously wouldn't be very fun from a gameplay standpoint to still have the animatronic wander in that first room. So, how do you fix this issue? Either A, have the animatronic begin walking towards the room the player entered and then continue to aimlessly wander from there. Or B, teleport the animatronic into the new room away from the player and then continue to wander. Security Breach decided that option C was even better. Why teleport the animatronic into the room and away from the player when we could instead spawn the animatronic directly fucking behind them? No, I'm not joking. In my stream of Security Breach, I actually stopped playing because of these two enormous gameplay problems. You can't have a character that will know your location the moment they see you, and then also continuously spawn those characters directly behind the player to get them seen. This does not lead to a fun gameplay experience, it leads to an incredibly frustrating one. So, how does Secret of the Mimic use wandering animatronics? Well, this is actually a spot where Steel Wool learned a lot, and there is actually a very large improvement. So, the Mimic gets into a costume and begins to wander. Let's say it sees you and a chase ensues. If you were to turn a corner and leave its line of sight, instead of knowing exactly where you are like in Security Breach, it will instead mark the last point it saw you and move there. Then it will wait to see if it can see you again, and if it can't, it will continue to walk in the direction you went in. Meaning that if you turn a corner and hid in a locker, it would not know you went into the locker and would walk past it. This is how you do a wandering threat mechanic. This creates fun strategic gameplay, not frustrating poopy ass gameplay. Anyways, we try to enter another room but see that the key symbol doesn't allow access as it's one level too high, so we continue. We find a mailbox machine, which I will say doesn't really make sense from almost any standpoint. You can insert your key into the mailbox machine to then add whatever mail was inside into your key box. And at several computers we find later, we can then read those letters. I have no idea how this makes any lick of sense in the game world, and there are several questions I could ask to break the logic of this mechanic, but I don't want this video to be an hour long, so let's just forget about this. Continuing in the other direction, we walk into this game's central hub area, where the very important security office room is located. Here we learn another frequent mechanic, jerking off generators. That's all I have to say about it. I could explain the mechanic a little bit more in detail, but I mean, just look at it. We're jerking it off. We can see the level to access the security office is one level above ours, but after jerking off the generator, it busts and the door opens and we can enter, hearing the dispatcher over the intercom inside. The dispatcher tells us that the Mimic is currently active inside the building and that it does have some homicidal tendencies. I could have figured that without him telling me, but that's cool, I suppose. It's also in this room where we find three very important and frequent machines we'll be seeing around the building: the computer, the upgrade station, and the inventory. The computer is pretty simple. With it, we can check the map of the building, read the mail we collect, and run a minigame called Moon EXE and something called Parachute.exe that requires the maximum access level to run. The upgrade station is pretty simple. It upgrades our key to the next access level. And finally, the inventory, which is a little silly. Around the map, you will be able to find several objects, most of which being collectibles, but some being important objects like cranks. You can put these objects into the inventory and then access them at any other inventory machine we find later. This bitch is literally just an ender chest. Holy shit, we've done a lot of yapping, but I had to do so in order to explain the central mechanics of this game. Now we can actually start talking about what happens. Let's take a little note. This game is very large and very long, just like my meat whistle, and it would take literally hours to talk about everything as in detail as I've been talking about it so far. So, for the sake of the sanity of you, me, and my editor, I will very simply be going over what happens for the majority of the game, only pausing to go into detail for things I think really matter, or for things that stuck out to me. I'm not going to be deep diving into every puzzle we have to solve, nor will I be mind-numbingly explaining every little bit of fucking backtracking we do. Trust me, you'll still be able to follow along with what's happening if you have a brain in your skull though. So, let's continue. Using our upgraded key, we head back to that locked room from earlier and enter inside, solve a puzzle that turns the power to the building on and allows for the dispatcher to talk to us over the building's overhead intercoms. It's also here where we get our first glance at the mimic inside of the stupid fucking elephant costume we saw at the beginning of the game, stalking us from outside of the room. Alright, here we go guys. Back in the security office, we're told that we need to find the schematics for the mimic, which are likely in the executive office. Of course, we need the highest access level to be able to go there, and of course, all of the other upgrade stations are in random areas around the building. Have you sensed how this game is going to work? Go to this section of the building, solving puzzles and avoiding a big boss, threat, or event, upgrade your pass, come back to the hub area, and repeat until you can get to the executive area. This is not a loop that bothers me. I love linearity like this, but I also know that some people don't, so this may be a turnoff for you. We grab a crank from the inventory and make our way towards the warehouse where the next upgrade station is. We use the crank to open this gate. Oh fuck, goddamn! Alright, shit, the first scripted chase in this game. This one is pretty easy to get away from, however. Just hide in a locker and walk around it. All good. This is how most chases in this game will be, except the future ones will be random. During this chase, however, is probably when I should mention noise distractions. It's another way to manipulate the mimic's AI. Given that the mimic doesn't have a line of sight on you, if you cause a distraction, for example, grabbing a wind-up mouse and making noise, it will pursue the sound before continuing to look for you. This makes for a more strategic way of getting around the threats. Even though I literally only used this once throughout my whole playthrough, and it wasn't until near the end of the game, I would recommend you do this though and not play the way I do. Heading into the next area, we see we need a crank to open up a gate. Wandering into another room, we actually find the next upgrade station. That was oddly easy. However, we still need that crank. Speaking of crank, I yank my crank on the daily. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. Let's move on. We walk through a giant hole in the wall into what seems to be a place where kids can play, or something like that. We find a giant present with a crank on it. Great, let's steal this bitch. Now, this is the first section of the game where I encountered two problems. First, for the love of God, turn the cranks clockwise. I turned this crank counterclockwise, and while it will still work if you choose to do this, you will have to crank it for about 19 times as long, so just how about we turn it the right way? After cranking enough, we see Jackie, a giant puppet, jump out of the box. Some might say she's a baddie. I for one know how to keep it in my pants, however. Also in doing this, the crank broke off and we can use it to open that pesky gate. But pause, let's talk about how I soft-locked myself here and broke the game. When I first saw that we needed a crank to open the gate, I had not yet found the Jack-in-the-Box room. So what I did was go to the inventory and pull out the last crank that was inside, as I was just taught to do so in the section previously. After doing so, I let Jackie out of the box and retrieved the second crank, which fell on the floor. I decided I liked the new crank better because the handle was red. What can I say? I'm a simple man. I took this crank to the door and realized I couldn't put it into the handle. I thought I'd try the other one that I pulled out of the inventory. So I dropped this new one on the ground, grabbed the other, and noticed I couldn't insert this one either. I then thought that maybe I broke the game and just needed to put the one I took out of the inventory back in. So I did so and went back to try to put the new crank into the handle. However, remember how I said I dropped it on the ground? Well, I happened to drop it directly into the hitboxes of some bricks, which prevented me from ever being able to pick it back up. So, I can't pick up the correct crank, and the other crank I have access to won't go into the handle. So I'm soft locked, and I had to reset. I didn't lose much progress, but I just find it odd that with a whole team of game testers, nobody ever thought to try this. I feel like what I did wasn't even that far-fetched, but hey, maybe it was. I don't know. Just thought I'd mention that I did this. Going past this gate, we enter a room with a mailbot inside. We find a generator and our instincts kick in, so we start jerking it off. After getting it active, the gooning material Jackie enters the room. I guess the Mimic thought now was a great time to climb inside of her, which I'm assuming makes a few of you fucking freaks pretty jealous. She rudely attacks the minimum wage working mailbot and throws him into a fucking wall. Can all my wages relate to this? Anyways, it's at this point that Jackie then sets her sights on us and the chase ensues. This chase is by far my favorite in the entire game. Something we'll notice as we continue playing this game is that it begins to lose steam as it goes on. But to be fair, that is to be expected with most games that exist. This chase has us running through the warehouse, but Jackie is fucking awesome, and throughout this chase she will be trying to hug us. Again guys, keep it in your pants, it's a robot. But as you're running through the tight corridors, you'll actually see her arms reach out from behind you, which is honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen come out of a chase before. I just can't get enough of how cool, scary, and intense this chase really was. On top of that, this chase is actually pretty damn long too, which I also think is awesome. There's a criticism I have with Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, that being, they go through the characters in that game so quickly that none of them really leave an impact. Trust me, each major antagonist like Jackie in Secret of the Mimic leaves an impact, and the length of the battle is definitely one of those reasons. Something cool about this long chase though is that there's always something different happening. Very rarely is it just run down a long hall like it's a chase straight out of Garden of Banban. There's always levers to pull and doors to open that make these chases even more intense. We slam Jackie in a gate and jerk off another generator. Believing we're safe, we continue, but guess what, fucker? Jackie is right in front of us and we're stuck in a vent. What are we to do? Well, Jackie weighs as much as a Discord moderator, thankfully, and the vent crashes. We wake up in the security office where we learn that the vent was actually right above it and we crashed through the ceiling. Yet for whatever reason, Jackie didn't kill us. We're told by the dispatcher that the next upgrade station is in the showroom back through the first room we entered. Entering the next room right before the showroom, we see a fuck ton of empty costumes. And it's here where I need to bring up what I feel is the biggest issue this game has. How and when the Mimic chooses to enter costumes. Upon coming into this room, it is incredibly likely that the Mimic will enter one of the costumes. Cool. Let's start distracting it and sneaking around. As you play this game, you will become very good at learning how to do this. But now brings up the big problem that kind of seems to have come over from Security Breach. The teleporting mechanic. I will say that in this game it's far less egregious, but it's still worth talking about. The Mimic will switch costumes sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when it switches, it tends to choose a costume to switch to randomly, even if that new costume is on the other side of the room. This very obviously leads to some pretty annoying issues. The main one being, hey look, you distracted the Mimic and moved to the other side of the room. It's now safe to walk around because there's no way the Mimic will see you. Uh-oh, fucker. You thought you were safe after you played the game by its rules and avoided the threat? Well, guess what? The Mimic has now entered a costume that's directly in front of you. This is obviously a big problem. On multiple occasions throughout my playthrough, I'd walk directly into a costume that the Mimic was in because I knew that previously it wasn't close to me. Even though I was keeping tabs on where the threat was, I was still punished. I feel like this took away from the immersion and fear factor and instead left me feeling pretty annoyed and frustrated. But continuing, we enter a room and find my favorite character in this entire game. A tiny little cleaning robot who's just sweeping the floor. There are several of these throughout the game, they're adorable and I love them dearly, and I chose to name all of them Rufus. So I will be calling them this throughout the rest of the video. Want to hear the best part about Rufus? You can literally pet him! Give him some head pats! I fucking love this game! Hi! Oh my god! Oh my god! I fucking love this thing, bro! Pat! Oh my goodness, go. Pat! Oh, one more! Oh my god! As I was streaming this, someone actually drew fan art of me and Rufus, which I think is just awesome. Also, while looking for this fan art for the editor to throw on screen, I also found a sketch of some more Skaggs and Rufus fan art. So here's that art too. We find an elevator that's fucked as shit by a costume head. We have to use a machine that teaches us how to fix it instead of just grabbing the head out of the gears ourselves like a normal person. I don't really know why safety is a big concern now, given the fact we willingly went into a building with an actual murder robot. We have to retrieve the maintenance cassette to learn how to properly fix the elevator, which is conveniently located in a room approximately 95 football fields in length away, which means we have to walk back through the room of bullshit, dick-ass, fuck-ass costumes. After grabbing the cassette, we head back to the elevator and learn the process of fixing it. Keep this in mind because it will become incredibly important later. We fix the elevator and can continue moving on. Going up the elevator, we find Rufus number 2, give him a pat, and enter the showroom where we meet the next big bad. Fucking Music Man. By the way, I know his name is Big Top in this game, but I'm choosing to call him Music Man instead, so eat my ass. While I think this section is very fun, here is where I also found another way to softlock myself. However, before I talk about how, let's go over what it is we're supposed to do. The goal in this section is to spin the prize wheel, but you have to complete minigames and beat the scores in order to win prize wheel spins. Music Man will be watching you the whole time. You'll see multiple mannequins around the area for some reason, and if you walk into any of them, they will make a lot of noise.
I want to pay money to play these games.
Keep that in mind. The first game I chose to play had us shooting targets with a toy gun. However, I found it way more fun to shoot the stupid fucking Helpy Bear in the face. After completing this minigame, the power to the large room goes off, and Music Man goes into attack mode. Thankfully, he is bolted to the ground and can't actively move around, but he will spin in a circle trying to look for you. If you make too much noise, either by walking, running, or bumping into one of the mannequins, then he will immediately turn towards you and butt-fuck your pussy and/or bussy. After the lights went out, several more mannequins spawned, acting more like a maze now. You'll have to quickly move around them because, again, Music Man is rotating in a circle and will kill you if he sees you, so you have to move fast. Once you get back to the entrance, you will have to complete an energy puzzle. But you want to know something cool? It's timed! Yay! As you're trying to complete it, Music Man will slowly pull himself towards you. If you're too slow, he's gonna have a bussy buffet. After you turn the power back on, I guess he decides he doesn't want to kill you anymore and goes back to behaving. Now we're free to do the wheel spin. Fun fact, it's rigged as shit, and you'll always get nothing on every spin except the last one. But after getting your spins done, we have to go play another minigame. The next one I chose to do was one of those classic games where we have to throw a ball at some big goofy ass teeth. However, once again, I found it much more amusing to throw the balls at Helpy instead. Let's speed this up. You have to play a minigame, sneak around the Music Man, and quickly solve the energy puzzle 3 times in a row to complete this section. On the final wheel spin, we win the grand prize and can continue. But let me explain how I soft-locked myself first. Somehow, this is even dumber than the last time. So, there are 3 minigames to do in this section. The first shooting minigame, the ball throwing game, and the second space shooting minigame, which plays the same as the first, but it's in space. What you're supposed to do is play each minigame once. However, there's nothing preventing you from playing any of the games more than once. So what I did was do the first shooting minigame, then the ball minigame, and then in the third cycle decided to do the first shooting minigame again, because like I said, the game allowed me to. When you enter one of those minigame areas and start the minigame, a door closes behind you to prevent you from fucking something up. However, since the game didn't expect me to do the same game twice, after I beat the score and the power went off, signaling me to go do the power puzzle, the doors behind me never opened back up, and I was stuck in the minigame room, soft-locked. Again, I have no idea how in testing nobody ever caught this. This seems like such a simple mistake for a player to make, even more simple than the last problem I had. If any of the devs are watching this video, please, fix this, please. Thank you. Anyways, after winning the grand prize, we can head up the stairs and hear a large crash. What the fuck? We look down where we were before and see that Music Man has broken himself off the floor and is nowhere to be found. Well, looks like we're fucked. We solve a puzzle to upgrade our key and continue moving forward. We head out onto the roof of the building and the game autosaves. Uh-oh. Here comes a boss fight. As we explore, we see Music Man climb the fucking building like King Kong, and the chase begins. Now, you remember how I said I really liked Jackie's chase? I cannot say the same for Music Man's. His chase isn't inherently bad, I just personally am not a fan. I will say that it does start pretty sick. We begin by running down some spiral-like stairs with him crawling down the center, which looks fucking awesome. But then, we get to the fuck-ass office building chase, which I hate. You will have to run through different office rooms, and Music Man's arms will break through the ceiling, preventing you from going into some rooms. So you'll really have to be on your toes. But here's the reason I dislike this chase so much. Usually in cases that have this think on your toes mechanic, you have to learn which path you need to take. And for me specifically, who doesn't handle chases very well in any game, it takes me a few attempts to learn the chase. Well, each time you do this chase, the path you need to take becomes randomized. So I never had the chance to learn the pattern. I just had to throw myself at it over and over again until I got lucky. Is this in part a skill issue? 100% it is, but I am giving my review, and I personally am not a huge fan of this section of the chase. After the office section, we move to what I'll call the crawling section. The chase gets much better from here. As we crawl through a tight corridor, Music Man's arms will slam through the ceiling, and we just have to avoid them. Super easy. Then we get to the mannequin section, and the chase begins to get bad again. Not nearly as bad as the office section though. I like how this part of the chase uses a mechanic we saw from Music Man earlier. However, I still want to die. There's one corridor where Music Man will slam his arm through the ceiling and leave a mannequin behind. And if you slow down for even a fraction of a second, you will die. And I did die. And then I shit myself. Once we get past that, we find another staircase. Music Man crawls down, but just like Jackie, is fat as shit and breaks the stairs. We fall together, and when the smoke clears, we see that Music Man got burned the fuck up.
Oh shit, bitch got burned to smithereens. Eat a dick, Paul Blart! Okay, we're good. Not even a problem.
We head back to the security office and are told by the dispatcher that the next upgrade station is in the theater. Once we arrive there, we learn in order to enter the theater, we need to be wearing a costume. Specifically, what appears to be a springlock costume. Which leads me to believe that it was Edwin who designed the springlock mechanics and not William. Lore! Anyways, it's not just as easy as hopping into the suit and going in. We first have to find all the limbs and the head, which are scattered around the area. Oh, also, in this room we see Rufus number 3. Pat. Getting the pieces is not hard. Avoiding the mimic who teleports into a fuck ton of costumes kind of is. Collecting all the pieces probably took me 40 minutes, but if you're actually talented, you could probably do it in 10. Just know, it's not hard. But if you want to see me do it, you can see it in the VOD on my second channel, Dexter Black. Hopping into the suit, we move on. While in this suit, the mimic will not be able to tell it's us, so we're completely safe. However, while in the suit, we won't be able to perform important tasks, so we'll have to hop out of the suit to do so, leaving us vulnerable. Our suit is also equipped with a gun, which is honestly just giving me way too much power. Anyways, we have to solve a power puzzle and move on to the next room where we need to ditch our suit for the time being. It's also here where we learn the point of this section of the building, to act as a place that will write stories and create shows for people. Who really gives a fuck about that though? Why give a shit when I can see a ghost-ass white tiger costume giggling like a schoolgirl? Yes, I'm serious. What the fuck is that? Moving on, we solve a quick puzzle that wasn't quick for me at all because I'm bad, and that allows us to continue moving our suit and move on to the special event of this section, the show. The show itself is boring as dick. Throughout, we have to use the gun on our suit to shoot some targets to progress the story, and occasionally shoot little puppets that try to attack us. But here we learn something super interesting. This game takes place in the 50s, so long before the first Freddy's location. Yet somehow, both Foxy and Roxy are in this show, which leads me to believe that Edwin designed those two characters as well. Lore! More lore! After completing the show, the ledge we're standing on breaks and we get fucked up. We wake up in a hospital area with a thick-ass nurse taking care of us. She believes that we're a robot because, no shit, we're sitting in a suit. She notices that there's a foreign object inside of us, and I tell her I have a foreign object that could be inside of her too. If you couldn't guess, Nurse Sweet Cheeks will be the boss of this section. While we move around, we see that she's stuck on a track, so great. Her movement is limited. Oh god damn it, she broke off the fucking track and is now free roaming. fuck? Since the area we're in now in the building is a recycling center, in order to continue, we need to do some recycling. And of course, Nurse Boner Alert is roaming the whole time. This section isn't too hard, and I actually kind of liked it, even despite the fact it may seem like otherwise in the VOD on my second channel, Dexter Black. Thankfully for us, I didn't softlock myself in this area this time. It's also in this area where we find the next upgrade station, and we're actually almost completely upgraded. After recycling all of the trash, the chase begins. This one is a bit different. It takes place on a conveyor belt that she's walking against. We have to shoot garbage out of some vents to fuck her ass up and push her into some lava. Wow, that was, actually surprisingly easy. I was concerned I was going to be stuck on this chase for an hour like I was with Music Man. Moving on with our brand spanking new upgrade, we begin to head back to the security office and oh, for fuck's sake, the lava didn't kill her! Of course the chase isn't over, you moron. That was way too fast. Before I talk about this chase, I want to mention how fucking awesome the music for it is. It's my favorite song in the whole soundtrack, and I'll make sure it's the background music for this section. You hear that, editor? It better be the fucking chase music in the background right now, or I'm gonna make the next video you edit be 3 hours long. Got it? Alright, good boy. The chase continues through the recycling center, with some fun sneaking sections mixed in too. But what I really want to talk about is the elevator section. What I assumed was the end of the chase is when we entered the elevator and escape. The elevator breaks and we have to listen to Fiona, who we later find out is Edwin's wife, teach us how to fix it again. Remember how I said to remember the fixing section from earlier? This is why. After fixing the elevator, Nurse Hotbottom drops her fat ass cheeks on top of the elevator. And now we have to fix it again. But this time, we're against the clock for her pegging me. Yay! I'm so fucking excited to fix this elevator for the next half an hour. Yes, it actually took me that long. I'm so fucking terrible at playing games. In all reality, this section isn't hard. I'm actually just terrible. After we get the elevator fixed, it starts rising quickly. Knowing it's about to get squished in the ceiling, we get to watch the Mimic jump out of the 4th hottest animatronic in the whole franchise right before it gets fucked up. And this chase comes to a close. I think this chase so far is the weakest in the game, but I do think the reveal of what the Mimic actually looks like is pretty cool and adds some points to it though. We get back to the security office and the dispatcher tells us the next place we have to go is the admin wing, which is through the warehouse. Amazing. What's in the warehouse to blow my guts up like Nagasaki? Well, it's a fat, ugly, Chica-looking ass bitch. Actually, I liked this section. It was simple, yet straightforward. The goal is to find 3 pieces to a power puzzle, then solve it and vacate the area. The pieces are scattered throughout the warehouse, and the Chica ripoff is skating around trying to find you. Very simple, very fun, not much else to say about it. We head through the gate and move on to the next area, which contained a puzzle that gave me a terrible headache. I should note that throughout my playthrough, I decided that every time I died, I'd take a shot. And I died a lot. So having to think hard on a puzzle this deep into the game in my state took a lot out of me. But after a bunch of trial and error, we made it work and could continue. Oh wait, I forgot to mention that after you do this puzzle once and get to the other side of the room, then you have to do it again. I want to kill myself. Moving on to the next room, we see Carl the Cupcake? What the fuck? Did Edwin design that too? Well, whatever. When you get close to a Carl, they will make a fuck ton of noise. I'm betting you can guess where this is going. The next area has apparently not Ripoff Chica return, in a tight, cramped office area with a metric ass load of Carls around to ruin your day. I also want to mention that while playing this section, I got asked by someone in chat, quote, "If a femboy hit on you, would you fold?" This is not at all important to the gameplay one bit. Just thought I'd mention how weird you freaks are. Moving to the next room, we find Rufus number 4. Pet pet. We also find the next upgrade station, and I figured out that this section is the lore dump area of the game. Yay, my favorite, lore dumping! Anyways, it's at this point we enter the room we've been trying to get to this whole time and download the Mimic blueprints. A very small chase with Chica begins. You just crawl into a vent. Awesome. This is kind of where I feel the game really starts to lose steam and turn more into a lore festival than a game. Moving on to the next area, we find Rufus number 5. Pet pet. You might be wondering what the boss of this section is. No way it was Chica, right? You're correct. It most certainly was not Chica. We head underground into the darkest room of all time and learn that the major fight of this section is against the stupid white tiger ghost costume we saw earlier. The tiger teleports around and can't go into the light. Lights around the dark room turn off and on, so you have to dash from one section to the other. At the end of the mad dash, there's a glowing star, which is probably important to the lore in some way. You take that star through a fucked up maze, all while the tiger will randomly teleport in front of you, jump scaring you and making you restart. I'm not really the biggest fan of this section, I can't lie, so I'm gonna try to get through it as quickly as I can. After getting through the maze, you set the star back down and do another mad dash section. Do this mad dash to maze section 3 times and we're done. Thank God. After this, we head to an elevator and all the way back up to the security office. The dispatcher tells us our work here is done and we should put our key into the inventory and leave. Does this at all sound a bit suspicious to you? Well, who really cares? We're done. We put the key back in the inventory and walk out of the building. On the drive home, the dispatcher calls us and asks why he hasn't been able to get a hold of us for the last few hours. Confused, our character, whose name is fucking Arnold, by the way, horrible name. Anyway, sorry. Confused, Arnold tells the dispatcher that he's been talking to him the whole time, and that he just told him to put his key away. The dispatcher is confident that he never told Arnold to do this, and it's here where we learn that the mimic had been mimicking the voice of the dispatcher throughout the intercoms throughout the entire game. The mimic tricked us into giving it the blueprints so that it could destroy them. Looking behind us, we see the mimic in the back of the van, and it attacks, and the game comes to a close, giving us the bad ending. As the credits play out, we see ourselves in the POV of Freddy, with Chica and Bonnie at our sides, with the mimic watching us perform. Hold the fuck up. Pause. What the fuck just happened? Well, as I said, what we just did was the bad ending. There's a few more endings to cover. I will note that I only got 2 endings, the bad ending and the extended bad ending. What the fuck does extended bad ending mean? Well, let's go over that one now. Going back to being able to put the key in the inventory, if we instead take it and travel deeper into the building, the mimic shows its true colors and tells us that we're going to die. We travel to some vents and head back up to the first room we entered and travel down through the floor deeper into the facility. It's at this moment when we're attacked by fucking Music Man again. What the fuck? I thought he was dead. As we travel down this large elevator, he will slowly begin crawling after us. Every once in a while, the elevator will stop and we'll have to quickly pull some levers to get it to continue moving. This random fight was so unexpected, I actually think it's pretty cool that he came back out of nowhere. I was honestly pleasantly surprised considering how much I hated his original fight. After escaping, we enter a new room, seeing a massive Freddy head. The original Freddy. Remember, it's the 50s, years before the first Freddy's location, yet here he is. Why? Well, it's at this section we learn that Edwin was actually originally in charge of the Freddy Fazbear Project, which is one of the craziest twists of all fucking time. But I'm gonna be real, it also makes the entirety of the lore all the more confusing. Oh yeah, also, Rufus number 6. Pet. Moving on, we enter the room where we ended at in the bad ending, seeing Bonnie and Chica half-built performing on stage. But wait, they were way more built than this at the end of the bad ending. Does that mean that the mimic finished building them during that ending? Keep that thought in the back of your head. Going to a computer, we activate the stage lights to watch the show, and the mimic crawls out of the pile of endoskeletons. Not in a costume, just a jumbled mess of fuck. This section confused me a little bit, but it's actually pretty cool. We have to get to the office in the back room, but the mimic will close the doors when we get near them. This is literally just Five Nights at Freddy's 1, but in reverse, where the mimic is trying to keep us out of the office. It's actually so fucking cool. Around the room there are 2 Springlock costumes, one of Bub, a boss from FNAF World, which is weird, and another of Monty from Security Breach. Holy fucking shit, how many things did Edwin create? This is insane! What you have to do is get in the Springlock costumes and leave them next to the doors. This will make the mimic close the doors and waste power. However, you'll notice when you bring the first Springlock to the door, the fake dispatcher says, "It cannot see you in the suit, but I can." That's right, the fake dispatcher actually isn't the mimic. So, who could it be? After leaving both suits at the doors, 2 more doors open, revealing that there are an additional 2 doors we need to block with 2 more Springlock suits. Awesome! As we walk to the next set of doors, the fake dispatcher voice starts to change into a more female-sounding voice.
Power. It will trap us both down here in the dark.
Isn't that interesting? The remaining 2 Springlock suits are Lefty. What? Nah, just kidding. I'm pretty sure this is just Fredbear. and the other appears to be Spring Bonnie. Are we serious? Did Edwin literally just create everything by himself? Did William just steal every idea from him? This is so fucking weird. It's completely flipping everything we know about the lore on its head. After blocking the remaining 2 doors, the fake dispatcher opens them, revealing that it's been Fiona, Edwin's wife, that's been talking to us the entire time. As a machine? I'm so sorry. I really have no fucking idea what's going on. I know I'm really bad at explaining lore, but I'm trying my best. It seems like Fiona has turned into a goddamn robot. I'm assuming at some point she died to something and Edwin was like, fuck that, I want a robot wife now, and somehow put her soul into this machine in the building or some shit. I don't really know, guys. I'm sorry. Fiona tells us we have to head to their house, which is apparently in the fucking building underground for some reason. Literally, what the fuck is going on? Fiona tells us that Edwin abandoned her and their son David by doing nothing but working non-stop. Originally, the mimic was supposed to entertain David while Edwin was working, but at some point it gained homicidal tendencies for some reason. Please, correct me on anything I'm wrong about in the comments, guys. I'm pretty sure most theories I'm going to attempt to form in this video will be incorrect as fuck. We travel into the house section and have to collect a bunch of film reels scattered around while avoiding the mimic. At the end of each film reel is a number, and matching the color of the reel to the colors of the letters in the name David, visible on a picture on the projector, we'll be able to figure out the code to open a door that's located upstairs. Just don't question it, guys. Just go with it at this point. The FNAF lore hasn't made any sense since Ultimate Custom Night anyways. In these tapes, we see Edwin's neglect for his wife and son, and in one tape, see that the fucking mimic is Fiona? What the fuck is happening right now? So, I guess at some point, Fiona fucking died, so Edwin had the mimic start mimicking her to be a mother figure to David? Do you guys think after the mimic took over Fiona's role, Edwin fucked the mimic too? Dear lord, guys, the fanfic writers are about to go apeshit with this. Inputting the code, we enter one of the final rooms and find Rufus number 7. Pat pat. We also get to hear an audio recording that is so fucking confusing I don't even want to talk about it. Nor do I even know where to begin talking about it. Basically, in this recording, Edwin sounds like he's hurt, as he continues to ask M2, which by the way is what they call the mimic in this game, for help and to call an ambulance. The mimic, who at this point is mimicking Edwin, is talking to Edwin like Edwin is David. My brain is about to fucking explode. So, Edwin is dying and begging the mimic for help, but the mimic is in fucking La La Land and is pretending to be Edwin and is pretending that the dying Edwin is David, and is neglecting the fake David, who is Edwin, who needs help and is dying. Does that make sense? I don't blame you if you think it doesn't, because it's confusing as fuck. We enter a hidden surveillance room and run cradle.exe like Fiona asked us to, but the mimic finds us and the final chase ensues. We jerk off a generator which starts a fire because it wouldn't be a FNAF game without one of those, now would it? And we enter an elevator, leaving the mimic on that floor. As we travel up in the elevator, Fiona begins talking through the intercoms to the mimic and calling it Edwin, which would lead me to believe that Edwin somehow put himself into the mimic while he was dying? Or maybe they're pulling a complete 180, and in that recording we just heard, the Edwin begging for help is actually the mimic, and the real Edwin is the one pretending that the dying Edwin is David? I swear to God, this has to be one of the most mindfuck type shit I've ever seen in my life. After exiting the elevator, the final chase ensues. Running through really tight corridors, not only is the mimic, or is it Edwin chasing us? I have no fucking idea at this point. But on top of that, a bunch of little fucked up looking munchkin robots are chasing us as well. They vaguely remind me of the little smiling critters from Poppy Playtime. We run onto a small metal bridge and the mimic drops down in front of us, but before it can pounce on us like I pounced on an Arby's beef and cheddar, another metal platform falls out of the sky and crushes that bitch. But the chase is still not over. We have to crawl through the burning building as the little fuckhead abominations crawl after us, hop onto a roller coaster cart, and finally we can relax as it drives us to the exit. Just kidding! It drops us off next to a bunch of fire, and we have to run through the burning building into the parking lot where even more little gremlins surround us. We jump into the van and we're out of that bitch, still with our key and the mimic blueprints in our arms. As we race away from the building, the little bitching nematodes attack our van, and if that wasn't enough, somehow the mimic has also gotten onto our van and punches the shit out of the windshield. The van crashes, and as we come to, the mimic reaches in and grabs our key from us, attaching it to its body and leaving us to die in the burning vehicle. The Mimic, Edwin, whoever the fuck it is, didn't want to kill us. It seems it only wanted the blueprints, but I'm not sure why. And that's where the extended bad ending comes to a close. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did I say the extended bad ending? What I meant to say earlier was the true ending. Yes, I'm 100% serious. That is the true ending to Secret of the Mimic. No matter what you do, you still lose in the end. The Mimic will always beat you. But what about the New Game Plus secret ending? Wait, Dexter, there's a New Game Plus? What does it add? A bunch of fucking nothing, really. If on New Game Plus you collect all 25 collectibles and put them in the inventory, complete moon.exe, and go to get the true ending, you'll be able to unlock a bunch of doors you couldn't open previously in the house section. You'll be able to collect 6 different cassettes, which will open a vent. Following the vent will bring you to a bedroom, which can only be assumed to be David's. Inside, you'll find a podium with a book on it. If you put the white tiger collectible on top, the Mimic, pretending to be David, will creep out of the closet. A recording will start playing, reading him a story. Every so often, the story will stop, which makes the Mimic mad. It will transform back to normal and try to attack you. You'll need to continue the story by pressing the correct buttons. You'll notice each button represents a Five Nights at Freddy's character. A bear for Freddy, a rabbit for Bonnie, a chicken for Chica, a fox for Foxy, an alligator for Monty, and a dog for... who the fuck knows? Roxy? I know she's a wolf, but eat my ass. The order you need to press the buttons is rabbit, chicken, dog, and bear. After that, the Mimic will tweak the fuck out and you'll be able to inject the original M2 schematics, which was supposed to be David, back into the Mimic. It will then transform back into David, grab the tiger, and go to sleep in the bed. Then the true ending continues to play out how it did before. What does this weird little secret ending tell us though? Well, here are my initial thoughts. Note, I am no expert theorist, and I'm probably about to be wrong as fuck. They call the Mimic M2 throughout this game. M2, I'm assuming, was supposed to be David after his death. That's why I think we downloaded the blueprints for the Mimic, or M2, who was David, and injected it back into the Mimic in the secret ending. Because obviously, once we do that, it stops attacking us and just plays as David. M1, who isn't explicitly mentioned in this game, I'm assuming is Fiona, who I'm also going to make a stretch about and say she's also Glitch Trap. I'm thinking the Mimic and Glitch Trap are completely different, and are just 2 iterations of the same idea. Maybe that was obvious, and maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. I have no idea. I think that's honestly what the secret of the Mimic was. I think that the secret is that there are 2 of them, technically. The Endoskeleton, M2, or David, and Glitch Trap, M1, or Fiona. Where Edwin falls into this, aside from creating both of them and apparently seemingly every major animatronic from all of the games and all the fucking spring locks? Again, I'm not sure. I like to complain about games. Analysis is not my strong suit. But as far as I'm aware, that is all Secret of the Mimic has to offer. In all honesty, I went into this game expecting to hate it. But it's honestly now one of my favorite official Five Nights at Freddy's games, only being beaten by Pizzeria Simulator. Seriously, nothing can beat that final Henry monologue. It's very clear that Steel Wool has learned from their mistakes in Security Breach. There are plenty of questions left to answer, like which ending in this game is canonical, and if it's the secret ending, then how is the Mimic in Security Breach? I'll leave actual talented people to figure that out while I keep making sex jokes and yelling at horror games. Again, I believe in terms of gameplay that this game is solid. I do think it starts to lose a lot of steam after the nurse chase, and I think that the final fight against the Mimic is a bit underwhelming. But I also feel like that was somewhat intended. Of course we were supposed to lose. We know the Mimic appears in later games. There was never a way to properly defeat it. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. What's the coolest thing you've ever seen a FNAF game do? Has there ever been a moment where you're playing a game and something is revealed that absolutely blows your mind? I've recently been suggested a FNAF game that did exactly that, and I'm very excited to share it with you all. Today, I'll be talking about Fredbear's Fright, an amazing FNAF fan game made in 2017 by Garrett McKay. This game is heavily tied to the original Five Nights at Freddy's lore, with a twist at the end you're not going to want to miss, so I'd recommend sticking around to the end because its ending is actually crazy.
Let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. Fredbear's Fright opens with a cutscene that takes place in the office from FNAF 1. The screen turns upside down, and I'm actually not totally sure why that happens. If you guys know why, let me know in the comments. Afterwards, we're sent to the menu and we can jump straight in to night 1. Something really interesting about this game is that it actually takes place in the original Freddy Fazbear's location with a few tweaks. You'll notice the only door you have is your left one, the right door being replaced with a small vent on the ground that can also be closed via door. You can see above the vent a panel with numbers on it, but we'll get into what that is later. Additionally, on the ceiling there's a lever you can pull that causes water to sprinkle into the office. I will get to that in a moment also. The animatronics in this game are mostly original aside from the two main ones, those being Dismantled Spring Bonnie and Dismantled Fredbear. We'll talk about Fredbear later because on night 1 only Dismantled Spring Bonnie and scrapped Mousiki I'm just gonna say Mousiki are active, so let's talk about them. Spring Bonnie acts as one of the main antagonists in Fredbear's Fright, and will probably be the character you see the most of in your playthrough. And if you take a look at him, you'll notice he is absolutely big-backed. This motherfucker never leaves the line at the Golden Corral. He starts on the main stage and moves towards your office. He moves to your right side to attempt to enter your vent. You'll be able to tell when he enters your vent because you'll hear the vent banging. Unlike shitty-ass, fuck-ass Five Nights at Freddy's 2 vent noises, there are actually different noises for different circumstances so that you can actually tell what's going on, which I'm sure everyone can appreciate. When Bonnie, or any other character for that matter, first enters your vent, you will hear exactly 2 vent bangs. Once he's in your vent, just close the vent door. After this, there are 2 other possible vent noises that will be heard depending on which night you're on. If you hear just a single bang, that means whatever is in your vent has left, and you're safe to open the vent door. However, if you hear more than 2 vent bangs, that means that whatever was in your vent just swapped places with someone else, and you should keep your vent closed. This is so incredibly helpful, it cannot go unnoticed. Because of this sound system, it doesn't make you rely on the cameras to tell the location of animatronics that attack from the vent. This is miles better than what FNAF 2 does, where every single possible movement in the vents uses the exact same fucking sound. And if you're on a super busy night like 10-20 mode, the vent noises will actually start to overlap each other, making it borderline impossible to tell what the hell is going on. Now let's talk about scrapped Mousiki. Mousiki is only ever visible on 2 cameras, camera 7 and camera 6. He will start on camera 7, and let me say, he looks scary as fuck, I'm not even gonna lie. He will move to camera 6, and when he moves again, he will disappear from the cameras entirely. Shortly after, you'll be able to find him at your left door when using the door light. What the fuck? All you have to do is simply close the door, and he'll promptly piss off. Mousiki will almost never be a real problem until later nights with a certain character I'll talk about later. Get to 6 AM and congrats, you're ready for night 2. After most nights in Fredbear's Frights, you will have to play an 8-bit classic FNAF minigame. The first minigame has you play as Fredbear on a stage with Spring Bonnie. You'll sing to the children for a short amount of time before the curtains close, and Purple Guy will come on stage and presumably turn the animatronics off. Oh boy, Pussy Guy is going to do something devious, I already know it! Anyways, on to night 2, which surprisingly doesn't have any of the animatronics that were active last night present. This night introduces 4 new characters: Dismantled Fredbear, the Hand Puppets, and Prototype. No, not the Prototype from Poppy Playtime. I don't know why I assumed you think it was. Probably because all you chronic gooners are brain rotted. Yeah, we'll go with that. Dismantled Freddy is one of the easiest animatronics to deal with. However, he can be pretty annoying when he attacks at a non-optimal time. Fredbear begins on stage just like Bonnie, he'll make his way to your office. But unlike every other character, you cannot prevent him from entering your office. He enters a room that you can't see on your cameras that's located behind your office. Once there, he'll wait for you to lift up your camera. You'll be able to hear that he's entered your office when you hear 2 thumps. Upon pulling your camera down, you'll be able to see him standing in front of you menacingly, and as tempted as you might be to immediately become physically affectionate with him, I encourage you to rethink your choices because you have to remember that he's a robot and not an actual living being that you can have relations with. This is where the sprinkler system becomes important. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see a water meter, indicating how much water you have left. When you pull the lever on the ceiling, water will start to rain down and decrease your meter. It's very important you don't use this water up because it's directly how you deal with Fredbear. The phone guy tells us that water will mess with the animatronics because, no shit, they're robots. He really didn't have to explain that one to us, but okay. So when Fredbear is in your office, just spray some water on him and he'll eventually go away. Something I want to mention is how unlikely it is that you'll run out of water. Even on the harder nights, I never had to deal with Fredbear more than like 3 times, and it doesn't take much water to make him go away. Safe to say, Fredbear is never a character you'll really have to worry about. That is, considering he doesn't show up when someone is at your door or enters your vent. You see, when Fredbear is in your office, you will be unable to interact with any buttons in your office besides the water lever. This means no closing the door, checking the hall light, or closing the vent door. I'm sure you can see where this could become a big problem. Let's move on to the hand puppets. There are 2 of them, a Spring Bonnie puppet and a Fredbear puppet, both of them being on the same camera. However, these 2 puppets move separately from one another, really acting as 2 animatronics. However, they function the same. Both act exactly the same as Spring Bonnie, going to the right vent and attempting to enter your office. You deal with them the same way as you do Bonnie, just by shutting the vent. The same vent noise system still applies with these 2. And my theory for their existence is purely to force you to listen and understand the vent noises, which is something I think is actually really cool. The final character to talk about is Prototype. Oh boy. Prototype. Prototype acts as the Foxy of this game. Similar to him, he has several phases on Cam 1B. He will slowly move through these phases, and just like Foxy, can be slowed down by watching him on the cameras. Once he leaves Cam 1B, you know he's on his way to your office. Oh fuck! The endoskeleton! It's on the move, bro! And you'll have to quickly close your left door. But there is a problem you'll probably notice. The game mentions that you'll know the prototype has reached your door when he pounds on it, just like Foxy does. Except the only problem with that is, at least for me, no pounding sound is ever played. I never had a sound cue from Prototype. Instead, what I had to do was check the cameras to see if he had gone back to camera 1B. This wasn't really a huge issue for me overall since I was constantly checking the camera throughout the night anyways, but I did probably end up losing way more power than I ever needed to. Something I want to mention about the power system, by the way. It's incredibly forgiving. You'll notice it decreases pretty slowly even when you're using a lot of power draining systems at a time. Power is usually something you'll never have to really worry about. Obviously, if you keep your doors closed all night, you're going to have a problem, but if you're playing normally, you probably won't even end up thinking about your power. But now, let's talk about Night 2's post-night minigame. In this game, you play as Foxy, dancing for the kids on stage before the curtain close, and Purpley Werpley fucks his shit up, ending the minigame. That's really it. Time for Night 3. Night 3 includes Bonnie, Prototype, Mousakey, the hand puppets, and a brand new character who is incredibly stress-inducing, Scrapped Fredbear. Scrapped Fredbear acts as an incredibly unique character that will cause more anxiety than driving right next to a semi-truck. Scrapped Freddy technically isn't a threat to you, at least lore-wise he isn't. According to the help menu, Scrapped Freddy doesn't actually want to hurt you. Scrapped Freddy works a lot like Golden Call from Dormitibus. He'll wander around the camera until he finds a phone. When he does, he'll call your office and give you a code to deactivate his AI. This is, again, according to his help menu, because he doesn't want to attack you, which I think is really interesting. When he calls your office and lists this code, you will have to use the number pad I mentioned earlier in this video to punch in the numbers. You don't have to press them as he's saying them, but once he's done reading off the code, he will hang up after a short amount of time, and if you don't have the code typed in by the time he hangs up, your ass is on the line and he's about to snort that shit. Typically, he gives you 4 numbers, but I've had him give me 5 or sometimes even 6. This can become very stressful because you'll need to keep track of everything else going on, so you don't really have the time to put everything on pause just to focus on the code. So you'll have to keep repeating the code in your head so you don't forget as you're dealing with all of the other problems. Ooh.
5, 7, 4, 2, 5.
You bitch! I was typing that, you ass! But if you can handle all of that bullshit at once, you're home clear of Night 3 and can move on to Night 4. But first, we have the post-Night 3 minigame to talk about. In this game, you play as Fredbear again and have to deliver cake to 3 children. After doing so, you walk over to a door and get yanked inside by Purple Guy and his little grubby dirty ass fingers. Fucking yuck, am I right? But now it's time for Night 4, and let me tell you, this night is super fucking cool. The night starts off normal, with every character we've seen thus far active. However, Phone Guy tells us that Prototype has done something terrible and doesn't explain what.
Prototype is doing something terrible. Tonight has been very good for me.
Shortly after, you can hear something on his side of the line scream, and the call abruptly ends. The night continues as normal, and throughout this night, you'll notice that the Prototype is nowhere to be found. Where the fuck is the Prototype? Hello? At 1 a.m., every other animatronic in the building disappears, and the real threat of this night shows itself. Fright. Fright is the final boss of Fredbear's Fright, acting as one final battle. Fright is presumably the Prototype, but you'll notice that he's made up of pieces of all of the other animatronics, which leads me to believe that the reason they all disappeared is because the Prototype destroyed and mangled all of them, making them part of him. You know what? Maybe this Prototype does share a lot of similarities to the Prototype from Poppy Playtime. Fright can be tricky, and it's not because his mechanics are particularly difficult, but instead because of how incredibly fast he is. Fright can attack from both the left door and right vent. He will only be visible on camera 6 and camera 4B. If you see him on camera 6, he's more than likely about to attack your door. The moment he disappears from the camera, very quickly he will be at your door. Close it as fast as you can because you will not have much time. You'll have to keep checking the cameras to figure out when he's left your door, and when he does, it won't be long until he attacks you again. If you see him on camera 4B, he's about to attack your vent. Same thing with camera 6. When he leaves, you'll soon hear him pound on your vent, and you'll quickly need to close it. Again, this night isn't hard because of what Fright does, it's hard because of how fast he does it. You'll need to be on your toes all night and be precise while also keeping your cool. This night acts as a very fun and quick night. It's incredibly satisfying to play once you get into the groove, which is something I really like about this game. It's very satisfying to play because it's balanced very nicely. If you can control your nerves until 6 a.m., the night ends. But not how you might think. Rather than getting your 6 a.m. screen, Fright reaches your office, and there's no way to stop this from happening. You get jump scared by him, and a cutscene begins. The cutscene looks to take place in the original FNAF 1 location before the reworks to the building that we've seen in the game. Whoever we're playing with holds up a phone and makes a call. It's at this moment we get what I feel is one of the coolest scenes from any FNAF game I've ever played. It's revealed that we're the phone guy from FNAF 1, and we start giving the call you can hear on Night 4 of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, which of course is the infamous death of his character, except this time we see it from his point of view.
Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads.
Dude, what? What?
Oh no.
Oh, damn! Yo, that was fucking sick! Dude, we were playing as the phone guy, you're joking! And this is how Night 4 concludes. This is actually so fucking cool. This reveal right here is the main reason I chose to make a video about this game. It's so simple, but I absolutely love it when games have fun reveals like this. But would you believe me if I said Night 5 was even cooler? Let's talk about it. Night 5 takes place in the unmodified FNAF 1 building, with us playing as the phone guy again. But this time, we're in the back room stuffed in a suit. This night actually takes place sometime after he made the call on Night 4, revealing that Freddy never killed him in the office, instead dragging him to the back room and stuffing him into one of the empty spring-lock suits that he wanted Michael to check on. This night consists of Phone Guy trying to survive until 6 a.m. so that someone can come and rescue him in the morning from the suit he's trapped in. You'll notice that this night starts at 2 a.m. instead of 12. This is because it takes place technically during night 4, which he made his final call during. So of course, some time has passed. This is so fucking cool! I can't get enough of this. But let's talk about the gameplay of this night. You have to prevent the spring lock suit you're sitting in from closing by holding space. Throughout the night, Freddy and Bonnie will be checking in on you by opening the door and watching you. Whenever either of them peek in, you'll have to stop holding space and play dead. Once they leave, you're free to continue. Additionally, you'll have frequent hallucinations that will require you to close your eyes by pressing shift. The hallucinations make very loud noises and closing your eyes blocks your vision. Fucking obviously. So, when you have your eyes closed, I'd let go of space, since you won't be able to tell when Freddy or Bonnie enter. If they see that you're alive, they'll definitely gobble you up like the little gobble monsters they are. After surviving until 6 AM, the night ends, and we get one final post-night minigame. This final minigame requires us to press A. When we do, we see Purple Guy press a button that seemingly activates the 4 animatronics. They walk out from behind a curtain and are in much worse shape than we've seen them in previous minigames, actually appearing to look like their nightmare variants from FNAF 4. They follow Afton into a room with the locked box from Five Nights at Freddy's 4 with a key laying next to it. If you click this key, you'll actually be able to collect it. The game ends soon after, whether you grab the key or not, giving you the normal ending. So, how do you get the true ending? Well, as I'm sure you could have guessed, we need to find the second key and unlock that box we see in the minigame. But where is the second key? I don't ever remember seeing it up until this point. Well, that's because it's actually very out of the way. On any night from nights 1 to 4, if you go to camera 6 and click on the Freddy poster in the background, you'll be sent to a secret minigame. In this minigame, you play as Freddy and just have to move him across the screen and grab the key hanging from the ceiling. After you grab it, the minigame ends. Now, you might think you need to replay the 4th night minigame to open the box at the end, but that would actually be incorrect. Instead, we get the ability to open the box after we finish one final challenge, Insane Mode, which is accessed through the Extras menu. Insane Mode is exactly what you think it'd be, a high-pressure, difficult night where all characters are active. The only real problems of this night are Prototype and Scrapped Fredbear, because they have a pretty deadly combo when you have to take time to punch in Freddy's code while Prototype is having to move. Since you won't be able to watch and stall him enough to stop him from charging your door, most other characters aren't a huge problem. Just make sure you're really listening and paying attention to the vent noises so you know when you should have the vent closed and when it's safe to keep it open. After you beat Insane Mode, you will see the locked box. As long as you've collected both keys, you'll be able to undo both locks and see what's inside. After the box opens, the screen will start to glitch, and if you look closely, you'll actually be able to see 4 faces between the locks, presumably a reference to the 4 dead children. Finally, one last cutscene plays. On a desk, you'll be able to see what appears to be the newspaper we saw at the beginning of the game, with someone named Radio Man calling us. He says he thinks he might have a lead and asks us if we'd be willing to go to an unknown location by ourselves. He says there's no guarantee we'll be able to find him there, not knowing who he is or where there is. The call ends with Radio Man asking us to return his call as soon as we can. At first, I thought this was someone calling Michael Afton in reference to going to one of the Freddy locations to find and kill his father. Up until this point, it seemed that this game was heavily tied to the official games. But after doing some digging, I learned that this cutscene is actually a teaser to one of Garrett McKay's other games by the name of Fredbear and Friends Left to Rot. One of my favorite parts about making videos on this channel is picking out the games. I'll spend days playing random FNAF games, and most of them don't really catch my attention like some do. Some videos I've made on this channel were because of pure nostalgia, while others were made because I played something that I found amazing, and today is no different. The game I will be talking about today is called A Bite at Freddy's. I began playing this game like I would any other, and if I'm being totally honest, this might be my new favorite FNAF game I've ever played. I feel this game blows even Joy of Creation story mode out of the water. My god, it's so good. As much as I want to dive into this game right now, I have a quick announcement to talk about first. If you don't care about it and just want to get to the review, you can skip to the time you see on screen here. Recently, YouTube has started age restricting my videos because of my vulgar language. I think that's stupid, but whatever. So you'll notice that in this video and all future videos, all cuss words and other inappropriate words will be censored. This is not something I'm happy about. I don't like that I have to do this in order for videos to be pushed out, but it's what I have to do. So to compensate, I've made the decision to start a Patreon. Again, another thing I'm not very happy with, but it's what I'm doing. By joining the Patreon, depending on the tier you may choose, you'll get access to my content early, with no ads, and uncensored. And if you choose the highest tier, Dexter Gold, you'll get your name mentioned at the end of videos. Blah, 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 whatever Patreon stuff. There is absolutely no pressure whatsoever to join the Patreon. I personally don't care if it sits on 0 patrons until the end of time. This is just being made in case anybody wants to listen to these stupid videos uncensored and support me on the side as well. Again, no pressure at all. Don't worry about it. The link is in the description. With that being out of the way, let's get to the video. A Bite at Freddy's begins with a cutscene reminiscent of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, with us in the perspective of Freddy. We look around as 2 people talk about the new animatronics. We can look side to side and see Chica and Bonnie. And this is where I already want to pause and say how f***ing cool these characters look. This game went totally against what every other FNAF game does when it comes to designs. Rather than having the characters just look creepy and dingy in some stanky pizzeria, these characters are based off of Westernism, with each character having a big goofy cowboy hat. I love the change of pace. I also really like how the characters have really long faces. I think it's super unique in comparison to what a lot of other FNAF games create. But enough gawking, let's get into the gameplay. On night 1, which is really called Course 1, which I'm just realizing as I'm typing this, I should probably explain, so I'll quickly do that. Rather than having multiple nights, A Bite at Freddy's just has multiple courses that I could only assume means a meal course, since in this game, instead of having to survive until a certain time, you have to survive long enough to see 3 meals served. Let me explain a bit more, since I know that still doesn't make any sense. Unlike most FNAF games where you're totally alone, in A Bite at Freddy's, your manager is also working in the building with you. His job is to make all of the food, and your job is to confirm its delivery. You might be asking, what the f does delivery mean? And I'll explain it to you, even though you could just open a dictionary. Throughout the course of each course, odd sentence, but whatever, your manager will get a meal ready. Each meal has 3 stages they go through. Preparing, where the meal is being prepared in the kitchen, if you couldn't have guessed. Sending, where the meal is put on a conveyor belt and transported to different locations in the building. And delivered, where the meal has made it to a designated location and awaits confirmation. The next meal will not start being prepared until the last meal has been confirmed. There are 3 meals that need to be confirmed each night. The first meal will be delivered to Party Room A, the second to Party Room B, and the third straight to your office where you can collect it and eat it like a little piglet. To confirm an order, you have to go to the location where it was delivered, whether that be the camera or your office, and just click confirm. Then the next meal will begin to be prepared. Once you confirm the order in your office, you will complete the course. Course 1 introduces 2 characters, Talk Show Bonnie and Talk Show Chica. Talk Show Bonnie will move around the restaurant and will take one of 2 paths. Path A, he will make his way to the entrance of our office. Once he enters, you will be able to see him in one of 3 locations in your office. You'll have to shut off the lights in your office until you see him leave, where you'll then be free to turn your lights back on. I think this mechanic alone is pretty boring, but it's made much more interesting because Bonnie will attempt to hide from you in different locations. It's never hard to spot him, but if you're ever super focused on something else, which you definitely will be, it can be pretty easy to miss him. It's incredibly simple, but just makes the game that much more interesting. Path B that Bonnie can take leads him to the kitchen, which brings up a small point I want to mention. If you look at the kitchen camera, you'll actually be able to see your manager making the food, or you'll actually only be able to see his big goofy cowboy hat. I think it's pretty silly, and I also think it's a lot sillier that when Bonnie is in the kitchen, he chooses to completely ignore your manager. I guess the taste of my asshole is just so much more desirable. And of course, our manager pays no mind to the fact a murderous robot with no legs is right behind him. Which actually brings up another point I have with these characters. Similar to Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese, the characters don't have any legs. Since they're meant to always be behind something, designing legs would never make any sense from a design standpoint. But because these animatronics have no legs, they just drag themselves around, which, even if it's technically not as threatening as a 7-foot tall, totally mobile robot is, it's totally much more creepy. Anyways, Bonnie will enter the kitchen camera and attempt to crawl onto the conveyor belt. On each camera where a conveyor belt is present, you'll have access to a close door button. When pressed, if you're terrible at context clues, I'll piece this together for you, the door to the conveyor belt will obviously close. This poses a problem with meals not being able to be sent. But I never once had a problem with that, so I don't care. Once you close the door, within 3 seconds, Bonnie will leave the kitchen camera and you'll be free to reopen the door. You might ask yourself, why would I not keep the doors closed the whole course and only open them to let meals through? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I really needed a segue into explaining another crucial mechanic: power. A Bite at Freddy's does power much differently than other FNAF games do. In this case, you want your power low all the time. Performing tasks will cause the power to increase. These include closing conveyor doors, stopping the conveyor, which I'll explain more in a second, and turning off the lights for Bonnie, which, by the way, doesn't make sense. Why would turning the lights off cause power to be used? I don't know. Don't ask. And a few other things that wouldn't make sense if I brought them up right now. If your power ever reaches 100%, it will overheat, and you'll have to wait for it to slowly decrease back down to 0% before you can use any of the devices that cause it to increase. So basically, if your generator hits 100%, you lose, because there's a very small chance where that happens and you still beat the course. Anyways, getting back to Bonnie. Let's say you don't close the conveyor door and Bonnie hops on the conveyor. What happens then? Well, in that case, Bonnie will ride the conveyor all the way up to your office. There will be a noticeable sound cue when he does, or any other animatronic is doing this. When you hear them approaching, you'll turn to the conveyor and pull the stop conveyor lever. This will, as the name suggests, stop the conveyor and temporarily shine a light down it, where you'll be able to see the lovely death robot staring back at you. Just like the doors, after about 3 seconds he'll leave and you can let go of the lever. So this brings up an interesting balancing idea. Let's say your power is pretty high and you see that Bonnie is about to jump on the conveyor. You're scared that if you use the door, your power will go up to 100%, and you obviously don't want that to happen. You actually have some options here. You can either risk it and close the door anyways, or you can choose to allow Bonnie to get on the conveyor and stop him at your office later when your power has gone down to a more comfortable level. Considering that, once they hop on the conveyor, it takes quite a bit of time before they reach your office. When no power users are being used, the power slowly decreases. That's something important I probably should have mentioned earlier. But another important thing to note about stopping them in your office is that stopping the conveyor makes your power increase significantly faster than if you were to have just closed the door. So it's really something you'll need to learn to feel out while you're playing in order to make the smartest choice. Now, let's talk about the other character this course adds, Talk Show Chica. Chica works somewhat similarly to Bonnie, where she'll wander around the building and eventually choose one of two paths. On path A, Chica will head to party room B and attempt to hop on the conveyor like Bonnie does on the kitchen camera. Just like Bonnie, you may close the conveyor door, and then in around 3 seconds, Chica will leave and you can open it again. Path B, on the other hand, is very interesting and is one of my favorite mechanics in this game just because of how goofy it is. Like Bonnie, Chica's other path will have her head straight to your office. However, where Bonnie will hide, Chica will sit behind your desk. Along with a notable sound cue you will hear, you will also be able to see her big goofy cowboy hat slowly rising up from behind your desk. When you see her there, you need to, no joke, grab a toy gun from off your desk like this is Moosey, aim for between Chica's eyes, and fire a fake projectile at her before she fires her fake projectile at you. If you win the standoff, Chica will exit your office. This has to be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in a FNAF game, ever. I could talk all day about how much sense this doesn't make, but this entire game is super silly, so I'm not taking it super seriously here. I love this mechanic. I think it's unique and goofy. Should I call it goofy one more time? Have I put that in the script enough? Whatever. Let's move on. The second course of the game activates Talk Show Freddy, and with him comes a new camera and a new mechanic. This was super interesting to me. I've never before seen a FNAF game like this add a whole new camera to a night. This caught me off guard and I was very pleasantly surprised. Freddy, unsurprisingly, works similar to Bonnie and Chica. Again, he will wander around the building and choose one of two paths. I'm going to give you a quick spoiler alert. This pick a path system is the same for every character in the game, so I'm going to not bring it up for the remaining of the characters. Freddy's first possible path has him go to Party Room A and attempt to climb onto the conveyor. Just close the conveyor door, yada yada yada, you'll be fine. His other path, however, has him go to the new camera, which is Vent Camera. When you click on the vent camera, a few other lines will appear on the map, showing you which cameras have access to the vent, those being both of the party rooms and the hallway. I've actually never really talked about the hallway, but it will become more important later, so let me just quickly explain some small things about it now. The hallway in A Bite at Freddy's acts as a type of hub where you will be able to commonly see most of the animatronics. Multiple of the characters have a few different states on this camera, which can help you understand and be able to predict what their next moves will be. For example, Chica has a chance to appear on the hallway camera very far away. Looking at the layout of the building and where the camera is placed, you'll be able to tell that she is directly outside of your office door. So, if you can make time to catch a peek at that hallway cam, you'll be able to start a mental timer in your head for how long it will be until Chica enters your office. And because of this, you also know that she won't be attempting to hop on the conveyor in Party Room B. Anyways, back to Freddy and the vent. His second path also leads him to Party Room A, where instead of getting on the conveyor, you will see him climbing into the vent. After this happens, you will be able to hear a notable vent sound cue, alerting you to the fact he's up there and hotboxing your vent. When you hear Freddy in your vent, you must go to the vent camera and turn on the vent fan. This will cause a fan to drop down and block Freddy's path. He will then be forced to turn around, and after 3 seconds when he leaves, you can safely turn the vent fan back off. Turning on this fan works the same as a conveyor door, so it also increases your power. There is something really cool and really quirky and also a little bit skibbity about Freddy and this vent, however. In this vent, Freddy has 3 notable states. I'm not exactly sure how the game decides which state Freddy will be in, but he has a state far from the camera, close to the camera, and the final, very important state where he's very close to the camera and looking down into your office at you. When Freddy is in this peeping Tom state, if you activate the vent fan, it will actually chop Freddy's f***ing head off and it will fall into your f***ing office. What does this do, you ask? Well, when I was playing, I assumed it was just a funny little gag. The only thing I noticed was that without his head, Freddy was a little harder to spot on the cameras since the characters' heads are the most noticeable part of their bodies. What I didn't notice, however, and only found out while doing some extra research for this video, was the fact that when Freddy's head is off, his aggression increases dramatically. So much so that he will move from his start location to the party room and to the vent in a matter of seconds. And when you get rid of him, you will only have a few seconds until he's back. You know, with how many times I've lost to Headless Freddy, you'd think I'd have picked up on this, but I never did. I guess I'm just a fucking moron. Course 3 adds the most frustrating character in this whole game, Foxy. Foxy will start on a different camera from the other animatronics talked about so far. This is pretty standard when it comes to Foxy. However, for some unknown reason, instead of being Western based like the rest of the characters, for some reason, Foxy is a scientist. What? Why? I fail to understand the thought process here. But whatever, that's not really important. Let's just go over what this goober does. Foxy's first path leads him to the kitchen just like Bonnie, where he will attempt to hop on the conveyor. What the f ever, you guys get it and don't care. Why is he frustrating is all you want to know. Foxy's second path leads us to the backroom camera, a camera that, at this point, has served no real purpose. In this camera, Foxy will have 3 states, each one bringing him closer and closer to some hanging wires, with the third state having him about to bite the shit out of them and kill himself. When Foxy is in this final state, you must press a button on that camera that will reboot the cameras. This also acts as a shock and will stop Foxy and move him back to the hall or main room. As far as I noticed, restarting the camera doesn't cause your power to increase, but it does make the cameras unusable for a small period of time. If you choose to not stop Foxy, which I wouldn't recommend, it's borderline game over. While you don't lose straight away, your camera's power will start to run on your office's generator, and as a side effect of that, every time you open your cameras to use them, it will increase your power, something it hadn't been doing prior. So while you don't necessarily lose when Foxy does this, with how much checking the cameras is necessary to beat any of the courses, you're basically f***ed. But after beating this course, you're actually done. Unlike typical FNAF games where you have 5 nights, A Bite at Freddy's only has 3. I definitely think this is an interesting approach, and also certainly helps with the game not feeling too repetitive, which, by the way, this game is great at making itself feel fresh all the time, but I'll get to that more later. After successfully fulfilling all 3 of these courses, we sit down with our manager and have a nice meal. Only thing that's a little off is we can see a twisted, malformed, deformed, crippled version of Freddy crawling near the table. That's when we're booted back to the menu and we see we have the option to do one final course. The final course acts as this game's 6th night, and it adds a brand new character, Threadbare. Lore-wise, Threadbare was an old Freddy robot they used to use, switching him out for a new model after a kid bit his face off in 1987. Are you kidding me? The bite of 87 in this game was committed by a child on an animatronic. That's hilarious. This game is so non-serious. I love it so much. Anyways, what does Threadbare do? Well, as I'm sure you could expect, he acts similarly to Freddy. His first path has him go to Party Room B and try to hop on the conveyor, and his second path has him enter the vent through the hallway. The only difference you'll notice from Threadbare and the rest of the characters is that Threadbare actually has a third path he can take, that being going down to the back room where Foxy can go and immediately making you have to restart the cameras. He's not forgiving like Foxy is. Foxy has 3 stages, giving you ample warning to prepare yourself. When Threadbare enters your back room and reams you in the asshole while pulling your hair from behind, you need to immediately drop what you're doing and deal with his bullshit. But after beating this course, the game is over. Psych, fucking idiot, we still got custom courses to talk about. You might be thinking, why are you even talking about this? Custom nights are boring as and usually I would agree with you, but this game does something super awesome and I really need to talk about it, both to pad for runtime and because it's just sick. Similar to Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Custom Night, there are multiple pre-built custom modes to play through, but unlike FNAF 2, each mode in A Bite at Freddy's adds a unique challenge on top of the custom AI. Let's start with just beating the custom course on a totally random AI number, not all 20, not all 0, and not using a pre-built challenge. Upon beating it, you will be rewarded a yellow slip, which is pretty standard in FNAF games. It starts to get interesting when you beat the custom course with every character's AI set to 0, in which case you will be given a roll of toilet paper. This is incredibly stupid, but I love it. It's so goofy that this was even thought of. It's the small things that matter in games sometimes, and this proves that point. Now, let's get to the challenges, starting with Basket Hunt. Basket Hunt has Freddy, Bonnie, and Threadbare active. Bonnie and Freddy having an AI value of 10, and Threadbare having an AI value of 5. The extra challenge of this course is that, after a meal has been prepped, the basket it's in will be sent to a totally random room. You'll have to search through the cameras like a Where's Waldo in order to find each basket that comes through. Not only is this a super cool addition that the creator 100% didn't need to add, our manager can also be seen with a bag over his head. Since he claimed we were so good at working, he could do it without looking. Because of this, it's probably why the meals get sent to the wrong location, because he can't see where he's going. And on top of that, after beating the course, the final meal that gets sent to your office has a boot instead of food, because again, the f***er can't see anything. I think this is such a cool little extra cherry on top. The level of detail is so great, and again, wasn't even necessary. I love everything about this game. I actually don't have any complaints up until this point. The next challenge is Haunted Roulette, arguably the weakest of the challenges. In this mode, the characters active are Freddy and Chica with an AI value of 10, and Bonnie and Foxy with an AI value of 5. In this challenge, you get a unique item called the Shocker. Throughout the night, key tools you use may become haunted, those tools being your toy gun, light button, vent fan, and conveyor lever. Throughout the course, while you're being attacked, You'll have to keep a close eye on these tools and use your shocker on them if you notice they're haunted. If you try to use a tool while it's haunted, the actual tool will jump scare you, which is just fucking, say it with me, goofy. On top of that, beating the night rewards you with a haunted meal basket that, when grabbing, will also jump scare you. What a treat. Coming in the opposite of hot, we have the next challenge called Cold Kitchen. This challenge consists of Freddy and Bonnie with an AI value of 10 and Chica and Threadbare with an AI value of 5. In this challenge, the heater in the restaurant broke, and to compensate, our manager is wearing earmuffs, which you can see on the kitchen camera. How cute. But this course's challenge is directly affected by the cold. Not only is it f***ing snowing in the building, Jesus Christ, but occasionally it'll get so cold that you won't be able to do shit. In order to stop this from happening, you have to occasionally go to the back room camera and reboot the cameras. This again releases an electric shock, which I guess heats up the building. Doesn't make much sense, but f*** you, it's what we're working with. Upon beating this course, you'll be given a nice little snowman. The next challenge, called Out of Service, contains Freddy and Foxy with an AI value of 5, and Chica and Bonnie with an AI value of 10. The special, super cool, kooky, and funny twist being the conveyor doors don't fucking work. If you recall earlier, I said you're able to allow animatronics through the conveyor and stop them at your office later, and doing this gives you a good opportunity to think and balance your power. Guess what, lips? That can't happen here. If an animatronic gets onto your conveyor, you're f***ed. Because on top of the doors not working, the lever in your office doesn't work either, so you won't be able to stop a god thing. This mode led me to develop the strategy of only checking the kitchen cam, party room cams, vent cam, and back room cam, since the rest aren't very important. Eventually, I started glancing at the hallway cam just to see where Chica was and if Threadbare was going to be climbing into the vent soon, but I didn't start doing that until a later night I'll talk about in a second. Anyways, beating Out of Service gets you finger puppets of Freddy and Bonnie. What about Chica and Foxy finger puppets? I hear you bitching about. Shut the f*** up, I'll get there in a second. The next challenge is Lunch Rush, which has all 5 animatronics at an AI value of 10. The extra challenge of this night is that you have to confirm 7 orders when every other night you've only had to confirm 3. And with every animatronic at 10, this is a course where your nerves really start to get tested. And this is also the course where I started checking the hallway camera. After beating this course, you get a Bonnie clock. Why is it Bonnie? I don't know. Because rabbits are fast? I don't know. Get off my ass, man. I'm trying my best here. The final built-in challenge is called Full Course, which has all characters at an AI value of 20. This is just as you'd expect it to be, but something important to note, A Bite at Freddy's has characters activate in an order. Even with their AI values cranked up as high as they are, on Full Course, each character still won't begin moving all at the same time. Don't get me wrong, this challenge is still incredibly difficult, it just isn't incredibly difficult right out of the gate. Beating this challenge gives you the Foxy and Chica finger puppets you were bitching about earlier. By the way, I still have yet to beat Full Course. I know that I can, I just haven't had time to pour the attempts in needed to do so. Now, what if I told you there was a challenge even harder than Full Course? Harder than all 520 mode? Would you believe me? Well, you should, because I'm not just bringing this up for no f***ing reason. If, while in the custom course menu, you manually set all the characters' AI values to 20 and then start the night, you will enter max mode. It's very similar to Full Course, but with one major difference. Every character activates right at the start of the night. You might think that's not a big change, but I promise you it's noticeable. You may not notice right away, but as the game goes on, your power will slowly start to creep out of control. It's insane what making the characters start at different times can do in terms of balancing. It's crazy how much more difficult it is when played this way. Even though the characters are just as aggressive, with them starting at the same time, you'd think that they were f***ing at 21. But if you somehow manage to beat this challenge, you'll be awarded with a Fredbear finger puppet, which confused me when I read about it because, as we know, a Fredbear doesn't actually exist in this game. So who is this? My only possible guess is that Fredbear is just Threadbare before he got his face all eaten up on, but I guess I'm not totally sure. What's the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? I think there's a few answers that could really give a valid argument. Maybe you think it's One Night at Flumpty's. Maybe you think Pop Goes. Or maybe... maybe you're super wrong and think Five Nights at Candy's 2. God, I fucking hate that stupid game so much. It's so goddamn boring and repetitive. I'd rather stick my dick in a toaster than play it. But hey, that's probably a video for another day. I should mention that the title of this video says the best FNAF fan game, but what that really means is from a gameplay standpoint. How fun is it to actually play? Maybe after hearing that, your answer has changed. The game we'll be covering in this video is, in my opinion, the best FNAF fan game from a gameplay standpoint that has ever been made, The Joy of Creation, Storyborn. Fun fact, Markiplier also agrees with me on this point.
I'm not even lying about this. This was amazing. This is by far the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made, just from a gameplay standpoint. And I'm only speaking from a gameplay standpoint.
So yeah, Markiplier and I are basically best friends. Mark, if you're watching, best friend, leave a comment that just says, "Peep." That way everyone will know that we are canonically best friends. Thanks, my boy. Before we begin, I'd like to greatly apologize for my lack of videos in the last 2, probably 3 weeks as of the time of this going up. I just got done moving to a new city and starting my new full-time job, so I have not had any free time. But I'm finally back in the groove, and I have a set work schedule that won't change, so expect uploads to be more frequent now. I plan on releasing 1 video a week on the White channel. Don't quote me on that, but I will definitely try my best to keep it up. Also, big news, we have a community Discord server now. Hooray! A while back I asked you guys in a community post if you wanted a Discord server, and the majority of you said yes. So I hunkered down and actually got one created. It probably isn't the best, but with your guys' suggestions, I'm sure we can make it a place where we all want to hang out and chat with each other. You can join using the link in the description. In the last video, I asked you all what your favorite monster from the web of cogs and oil was. My favorite comment was this one by Ads the Flareon. They chose the corpse, and while my favorite is the trickster, I really like the thought process behind this answer. Flareon says that they're so desensitized to animatronics that the machine isn't even on the table for favorite. They go on to say how out of place the corpse feels and how that alone makes it the creepiest. Jesus, would he just get to the topic of the video already? Yap, that's all this bozo does. Listen, I hear you. You don't need to be a dick. Let's get to the video. The Joy of Creation story mode is, as I'm sure you already know, not the first game in the Joy of Creation series, but let's all be honest with each other, it's easily the first one that's actually enjoyable to play. The original Joy of Creation might actually be the most boring experience of all time. It consisted of you sitting in a chair, spinning in a circle, and flashing your flashlight at everything you see for an infinite amount of time. That's right, there wasn't even a time system. Story mode, however, is absolutely amazing, so let's get into it. The game opens with a cutscene. We play as an adult named Nick Cawthon. Recognize that last name? Well, you should, and don't worry, I'll be talking about it in a bit. Nick walks up to an old house in the middle of the woods and recounts how long it's been since he's last been there, insinuating that something terrible happened inside before. We get a flashback detailing the start of what happened, and we're shifted into the point of view of a new character named Michael. Michael wakes up in a basement. We find out it is in fact not Michael's basement, and is instead Scott Cawthon's? What the fuck? Regardless, Scott asks Michael what he's doing in their house. Michael states that he doesn't know, and a child version of Nick convinces Scott and Val, who is Scott's wife, to let Michael stay the night at their house. Absolutely, positively, possibly one of the worst plays I've ever witnessed in my whole entire life. You found a guy in your basement, talked to him for 3 minutes, got a solid 0 answers from him, and allowed him to stay in your house overnight while your wife and child are inside. Absolutely brilliant. This is when we enter the first, what the game calls, memories. I can't call them nights since all of the challenges we will play through actually happen at pretty much the exact same time. For Memory 1, we are in a bedroom in a crib, where we play as Nick again, this time as a child.
We wake up in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, and Michael starts talking through Nick's baby monitor, effectively acting as the phone guy of this memory. Michael explains to Nick that there are monsters trying to get him, and explains in detail how to fend them all off, explaining that at 6 a.m., the monsters will all go away, and we're thrown into the first challenge. Unlike in most FNAF games where you slowly are introduced to each animatronic throughout the nights, adding more and more stress as it goes on, Story Mode opts to do something different. Story Mode throws essentially every animatronic on your nuts all at once. This memory has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy in it. I'll now go over all of their mechanics. Before I dive into the character mechanics, I'll start by mentioning the lamp. Behind you there is a lamp. By turning it on, you calm yourself down. Having the lamp off for too long will lead to you having intense visual and auditory hallucinations before inevitably losing the run. Now, I'll start with Chica since she's by far the easiest to deal with. Chica comes from your closet. There will be a noticeable audio cue when she opens the closet door. When she does, you'll have to turn off your lamp and wait for her to go back into the closet. Personally, I didn't know Chica swang that way, but I think it's pretty sick. Next, I'll go over Bonnie. Bonnie comes from your bedroom door. He will make a notable audio cue like Chica. He will knock on the door 3 times. When you hear this, you'll need to be quick, because you only have so long to react. When you hear the knocks, you'll have to quickly shut your lamp off and lay down in your crib. I should mention that laying down is a mechanic, and if you lay down while Chica's in your room, she'll kill you. After laying down in bed, Bonnie will slam your door open, look around, and then leave the room again, which tells you that it's safe to get back up and turn your lamp back on. Bonnie has this really weird mechanic. I'm not sure if it's a bug or if it's intended. However, a lot of the time, I'd say about 50% at least, when you hear Bonnie knock, he'll never end up coming into the room, which caused me on multiple occasions to shut the lamp off and lay down, only for the sound of Bonnie coming into the room to never play, meaning I end up laying down for way longer than I should, which pretty obviously fucks me over. Next, we'll talk about Freddy. Freddy appears at the window next to your crib. When he does, all you need to do is close the curtains to prevent him from seeing you. After a few moments, you'll hear a quiet sound cue letting you know he's left, and it's free to open your curtains again. But what if you hear Bonnie knocking or Chica coming in while you're holding off Freddy? Well, I'll tell you, you'll just get bread in the butt. So when you shart Bonnie's jizz on the toilet after being bread in the butt, we can talk about Foxy. Oh my god, Foxy. Foxy is under your bed like your weird uncle. Occasionally, you'll hear him scratching his hook on your bedpost. Well, at least, that's what Michael says that he's doing. I personally subscribe to the belief that he's scratching his hook on his big fat stupid balls. When you hear him doing this, you know that he will soon be attacking. A while after the sound cue, you will be able to see Foxy's hook on the back of your bed. When you do, you know you don't have much time left until he attacks, so quickly turn off your lamp, lay down, and close your eyes. Oh yeah, forgot to mention you can close your eyes while laying down. It's just used for Foxy, which is why I didn't say anything. Repeat this ass cycle enough times and congrats, you've beaten the first memory. Only 4 more left to go. The second memory takes place in the living room of the house. In this memory, you play as Scott's wife, Val. We start with a cutscene where Scott tells Val that he's going to make sure Nick is okay, since both of them are pretty uncomfortable with Michael staying in the house, which bodes the question, why the fuck did you even let him in? Regardless, Scott leaves and Val is left alone. This game mode is honestly probably my favorite. I personally feel it is the most terrifying out of the rest. In this memory, rather than being confined to one area like normal FNAF games, you're freely able to move around. Just like in the last memory, you have to survive until 6 a.m. against all 4 main animatronics. Michael tells us that we're fucked and to just hide. Thanks, Michael. Very helpful. Since Michael was no fucking help at all, allow me to explain what it is you're supposed to do on this night. Let's start with Foxy and Freddy. These two act identical to one another. Each come down the hallway on one side of the living room. You can check how far away they are by turning the TV on while watching their cameras. Yeah, for some reason Foxy and Freddy have cameras mounted on their faces or something. I'm not really sure, but we don't question it. You can stall one of them at a time by holding down a button. Somehow. I don't really know, guys. I really like this memory, but this part actually makes no sense. Please bear with me. Get it? Bear. Like Freddy. Like Freddy, because Freddy's like Freddy Fazbear. Like he's a bear. Bear with me. Do you get it, guys? Guys, do you get because he's like a bear? You'll notice that Foxy and Freddy both move at the same speed. So if you don't begin stalling one of them, they will reach your room at the same time, which will mean immediate death for you. How do you keep them out? I hear you asking. Well, guess what? You don't. That's right. The animatronics in this night will literally enter the room you are in and try and find you, so you'll need to hide from them when they open the door. The way you hide from Foxy and Freddy is by hiding right next to the door that they'll be opening. The only problem with this is that when you're standing next to one door, you're right in the line of sight for the other, meaning that if you're hiding from Freddy and Foxy opens the door, he'll see you and promptly kill you. This is why stalling one of them is super important, as you'll be able to control and create a pattern at which they will come to the doors. Now let's talk about Bonnie. Along with the 2 doors that Foxy and Freddy come from, there are also double doors to the living room as well. I really have no idea why there are so many entrances to the living room. This house is a fucking maze. Bonnie doesn't have a camera, so you can't watch him directly. Instead, you'll have to walk over to the double doors and look through the keyhole to see how close he is. Once he gets close enough that you'll be able to smell the grease on his fuzzy nutsack, you just have to hide on either side of the double door and wait for Bonnie to arrive and close the door. Which brings yet another issue. When you're hiding from Bonnie, whichever side of the door you're on will leave you vulnerable to either Freddy or Foxy, so you'll really have to balance and know where Foxy and Freddy are at all times. It's the reason why I really like this memory. I really like micromanagement in games that are both hard but fair. This is why I think 1020 mode in FNAF 2 is such bullshit, because it's actually just not fair, especially Toy Bonnie. Toy Bonnie is the reason why it took me 14 hours to complete that stupid fucking mode. If you want me to make a video talking in detail about why I hate that mode specifically, let me know in the comments below. With Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy being gone over, the only character left to talk about is Chica. Chica is easily the weakest character in this night, very similar to last night. Chica will randomly appear next to one of the windows in the living room. You'll be able to tell because she starts growling? What? She's a fucking chicken. Why would she growl? Whatever, that doesn't matter. When she does, you'll have to get up from the couch. I should have probably mentioned that when you look at the TV to check on Freddy and Foxy, you have to sit down on the couch. I didn't think it was important when I was writing that part of the script, but I just remembered while writing this part, and I'm honestly way too lazy to go back and edit that part of the video to add one sentence. So instead, I opted to add in a whole nother section just to explain why I didn't explain that part of the game before, arguably padding for runtime, even though this video would have been well over 15 minutes without it. Hopefully you enjoyed this section of Dexter Over Explains. Anyway, when you hear Chica growling, you'll have to stand up from the couch and not move until you hear the growling stop. Once you do, you're free to move again. If you move, Chica will jump scare you, which actually doesn't kill you until the final hour. Instead, it will just send you back to the couch and you won't be able to check the cameras for a while. Chica is easily the weakest part of this memory, as previously stated. She just feels so shallow compared to the other 3. I know the other 3 all do the exact same thing, but they do so in a way that feels interesting. They do so in unison, as even though they do the same thing, they all work together in a way that keeps up the intensity all night. Chica just feels so out of place. After 6 a.m., this memory is over and we can move on to the next one. The next memory takes place in the office where you play as Scott Cawthon himself. This memory starts with Scott going to check on Nick, but of course, we both know what Nick and Val are going through at the moment. Now it's Scott's turn. Scott sees Freddy and starts running. I'm talking haul-assin'. His house starts going batshit crazy and Scott hides in his office. He listens to a tape he left himself on how to defeat the animatronics that he made. I try to wrap my head around this section and the lore implications behind why he was leaving himself recordings, but I'm honestly too tired and way more focused on the gameplay in this game. This night is okay, I guess. It's interesting at the least, and it's very clearly just a large improvement from the first Joy of Creation game. Instead of just spinning in a circle and flashing your light when you find animatronics, you actually instead have to actively search for each animatronic.
Let's start with Freddy since he's both the easiest to deal with and the weirdest overall. Freddy can appear in any of the 4 entrances to the office: the front door, the window, the other window, and the closet. Just like the living room, this memory is free roam, so you'll move around to find the animatronics. When you find Freddy, just flash him with your flashlight and he'll leave. Something very interesting about Freddy that I should note: if left unanswered, Freddy will not kill you throughout the memory. Rather, he acts as a check for the end of it. If you reach 6 a.m. and Freddy is in one of the locations where you could find him, he'll kill you, so you have to make sure that you're really on top of him. I'll talk about Foxy next. On your desk you'll find 3 monitors with cameras! It's been so long, really starting to feel like classic FNAF now. You can look through the cameras on these monitors to find Foxy. When you do, all you have to do is look at him on said cameras. Eventually he'll have a seizure and leave. That's it, pretty simple. But of course, the characters in this game tend to like to work together to make your life more difficult. So that brings me to Bonnie. You can also find Bonnie on the cameras. However, if you see Bonnie on the cameras, make sure not to look at him directly. If you do, he'll punch the shit out of your camera, and you'll no longer be able to look at it for the rest of the memory. Instead, you have to go to the location corresponding to which camera you saw him on, and flash him with your light to make him go away. Now we can talk about Chica, who, unlike the last 2 memories, is actually my favorite. So, there's this giant fucking hole in the wall of your office. I don't know why, you also don't know why, so we won't question it. Chica will try to fit her big fat hairy ass through it slowly, and I do mean slowly. Slow as fuck. So slow. Once she begins to wriggle and writhe in your hole, pause. Once she begins to shake on your hole, pause. Fuck. Once she begins to force herself through your hole, pause. God damn it. You know what? Once she starts to move, you have to get up and find 3 cupcakes hidden around your room. Once you do, she'll leave. These cupcakes can be hidden in drawers, behind posters, and my favorite, in the fucking garbage. Since it may take you a bit of time to find these cupcakes while working on dealing with the other animatronics, if you look at Chica, she will stop moving, giving you more time to look for the cupcakes. Congrats, you little stinker. Once you hit 6 a.m., if Freddy is gone, you're free to move on to Memory 4. Memory 4 is by far the most different and intuitive. I will say, I'm not super sure how it works, so I'm sorry if my explanation is god-awful. In fact, since I'm so nervous I'll be god-awful, I'll let my best friend Markiplier that I mentioned earlier take it away. It's totally gonna be him giving a detailed explanation of this memory, and totally not just me doing a montage edit of his playthrough of this memory with a little bit of commentary. Mark, please don't copyright this, we're best friends.
My name is Markiplier. It's time to go into the basement. Whoa.
Kids! Are any of you there? I found your note. Daddy's here. You must be really scared, but I'm here. I created you. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. How is this happening? What are you? What are you?
Ow! Ah, good. Yes, you put me in the shitty toilet. Oh, good. Thank you for that. Why is this in my basement? Oh, okay. All right, then. Am I not going to get any information about this one? Am I just going to be left to my own devices? There seems to be a lot of 6 on the walls here. Oh, hi! Hello? Who are you? Maybe I gotta get through the door. I'm gonna try to sneak over to the bathroom again. Why did I come in here? I didn't need to come in here. Oh! Ah! We come from the fire! I need a cupcake, I need a triangle, I need a swirkly-doo, I need a roll. I don't know what any of those are. Ah! I am in the furnace! There must be like... Oh, what the fuck? Okay, I got a hook. Oh, okay, that's in the furnace now. Well, that's good to know. Okay. No? Alright then. Yee, okay. Nope, you're still there. Okay, that's a problem. Yeah, I'm right there. Okay, got it. It's gone quiet. What? How does that make sense? We've got 4 more to go, and that one took a while. Many shapes, all similar, but different. Oh, it's a code thing, isn't it? All right. Ah, wait. Okay, the numbers coincide with the number of creatures. 9632. I'm not sure I'm too happy about this, but there we go. So, Hey! Okay! Oh boy. Oh, hi. Okay. Eat doop. Be doop. Be doop. Oh, that's not good. Yeah. Oh god, it's a code. Of course it's over there. I don't know the code for this one. Bonnie with 4. So Freddy had 3, Bonnie 4, Foxy 2. As it leaves Chica with 1, right? Oh, I see. Okay. They're colored. Okay. Chica first, Foxy second. Ooh. What? Okay. Oh. Oh, I can close it behind me. Alrighty then. Got the key. I don't know! Okay, where am I now? Oh. Pressing forward because I got nothing better to do and I have a funny feeling I'm gonna die. Okay, that's... keep going. Okay, don't look back. I'm not gonna look back. Why would I look back? Okay, I looked back. I don't know what that did, but I did it. Ah! Ah! That's why you don't stupidly look back. All right, number 2. Oh, that was number 3. Oh, we act, we posed, we played, we stopped, we stared, we scream. Hi, Golden Freddy. Oh, he remains. Oh. What do I do about this? Oh, hi. What the fuck? Oh, hi. Oh my god. Okay. Holy shit, I saw that move, man. Ooh. Oh, no door. Oh, we're in no door land. I got a bad feeling about this. Oh, everything's gone. Excuse me. Hello. Oh, it's his computer. Hey, I made it. Simple tricks of the mind or something more sinister. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Bye-bye.
Wasn't that sick? Thank you, Markiplier. Truly my best friend of all time. Finally, it's time to talk about the final memory of this game, which takes place in the attic. In this memory, you play as Scott again. Michael beats your shit up and ties you to a chair in the attic. He tells you that you're gonna burn and die, because fire in Five Nights at Freddy's is like beans on toast to British people. I don't know if I'd call them people though. Gonna be real, don't really give a shit what Michael has to say. I'm much more concerned about the fire in my goddamn house. In this night, you go up against 2 endoskeletons, Golden Freddy, and The Creation. Oh my god, Creation! Like the joy of creation, that's the name of the game. Isn't that so cool? Oh, that's so fucking cool. I'm gonna scrub my nuts on a cactus. Anyway, The Creation is the coolest part of this memory, so I'll cover it last. Let's start with the poopy ass Golden Freddy. Unlike other memories, surviving isn't enough to complete it. Instead, you actively have a task to complete. In this case, you have to find Golden Freddy on your cameras 12 times and shock him. Once you do, you finish the memory. Sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? Wrong, you fucking idiot. It's actually pretty bullshit. Wanna know why? Because of The Creation. But I'll get to the poopy ass Creation in a minute. First, I have to talk about the stupid bumbling endoskeletons. So as I was double checking their mechanics, I learned that the endoskeletons are actually called the Fallen. Pretty cool, I suppose, and typing the Fallen is way easier than typing endoskeletons over and over again, so that's what I'll be calling them. In your cameras, you can switch from the house cameras to the attic cameras. It's on these attic cameras where you can see the Fallen. Inside of the attic, there are 2 large doors. Each Fallen will come from one of these doors. When you hear their enormous fat asses trampling down the hall, just make sure you close the door on the correct side of your attic to not have your ass blasted. I should also mention that Golden Freddy can appear in your office all transparent like. I don't really know what happens if he does this, as every time I saw him I quickly looked away out of habit from FNAF 2. Now we can get to Poop Dog, aka The Creation. The Creation will start in the basement of your house. As the memory progresses, The Creation will make his way through the house and to the attic where you are. Now, I know just by looking at him, you may be thinking, God damn, that robot is really hot. And I agree. However, this is not the character you're going to want to rule 30 for you. He'll bend you like a contortionist, but we both know full well that you can't bend like that, so you'd probably just end up dying. On your cameras, you'll see these 4 markers that represent doors or barriers. As the creation moves, he will break his way through these barriers in an attempt to get to you. You can use your shock to send him back a phase in the cameras, but this brings up an issue. Your shock has a painfully slow recharge time, and if you flash the creation, then you won't be able to flash Golden Freddy to win. Finding the perfect balance between flashing these two is key to defeating this memory. Once you've found and flashed the 12th and final Golden Freddy, the attic memory will be completed. As far as gameplay goes, that's where the Joy of Creation story mode comes to a close. There's multiple other things along with an enormous timeline to dissect, but I'd rather die. I like talking about how the game plays, and in that case, Joy of Creation story mode is top notch. Every single memory plays completely differently, and I think this is the main reason why it's so good. With other fan games, and even the originals themselves, you quickly understand what you need to do and can then begin to come up with strategies that allow you to not use certain intended parts of the game. For example, FNAF 2. In FNAF 2, there are a lot of cameras. Like, a lot. However, you only ever need to use one. That's not very interesting when you think about it. You actually have no good reason to ever look at any of the other cameras in the game because the music box is all that matters. Same goes with FNAF 1. The only cameras you have to look at are the right corner cameras to make sure Freddy stays put, and occasionally you'll have to check on Foxy, but if you're playing correctly, you don't even have to look at Foxy in order to win. The Joy of Creation story mode switches up the gameplay loop every night. None of the nights are terribly complex, leaving out the attic, but since you have to learn something new each night, that's not something I have a problem with. I think if you were to take one of these memories from this game and turn it into a standalone game, I wouldn't like the game very much, because repeating formulas just isn't fun in any game. Don't keep repeating yourself, or if you do, make sure that it's repeated in a way that's interesting. For example, Undertale. While that whole game is based around an RPG battle mechanic, every enemy has unique and different attack patterns to learn, and just when you get bored of dodging projectiles, the game switches it up and changes the mechanics and physics of the heart you play as. It's brilliant, and so is this game.
Sometimes, while digging through GameJolt for a FNAF game to play, I find a game that feels like it's inspired by FNAF rather than being a fan game. And it's usually these games that get me super interested in them, their stories, characters, and gameplay loops. By the way, don't sort the FNAF section of GameJolt by newest. You will find some of the weirdest, most god-awful, foul, slapped-together games of all time. Before we start, at the end of the last video, I asked you all what your favorite Five Nights at Wario's 1 character was and why. My favorite answer was this one from Platinum Comet. Not only did they share the same favorite character I had, but they also provided a really good explanation as to why. If you'd like a chance to get your comment at the beginning of a video, stick around to the end when I ask another question. Anyways, a few days ago, I found a FNAF game that blew me out of the water, which is really a good thing because I'm very scared of bodies of water. This game is Playtime with Percy, with a gameplay loop so unique and consistently interesting, along with animatic cutscenes, amazing 2D art, and a final sequence that might be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I knew I had to talk about it. So sit back, grab a snack, or don't, I'm not your dad, I can't tell you what to do, and get ready to dive into the world of Playtime with Percy. Upon loading up the game and starting a new game, we're greeted with something really refreshing for this genre. Rather than just showing the night screen and hopping in and having a phone call relay all information that we need, we're instead shown a very well-drawn cutscene. While it's more a visual novel and not an animation, it's still super nice nonetheless. Our boss calls us in the middle of the night and asks us for a favor. Even though we were laid off from working at Percy's Playhouse, the location where this game takes place, our boss asks if we'd be willing to do some work for the week as he plans to shut down and have the building demolished on Friday. He needs us to watch over the building and do some extra tasks like fixing up the animatronics, since he plans on selling them because they're still worth a decent amount of money. So I have a question already. If we got laid off and no longer work for this guy, why the hell did we answer the phone?
I used to work at a Subway until I quit. Even if right now I got a call from my boss from said Subway, there's no chance in hell I would answer it. Maybe I'm just a dick, I don't know. We agree to help our boss for $250. That's it. The whole week. Monday through Friday, $250. Our character, Nick, was happy to accept that. Either this game takes place in 1920 or Nick is the poorest human being on the planet Earth. Unlike most FNAF games, the way this game's gameplay loop works is actually really interesting and a lot different. Each night you do a normal office section, but then afterwards you do another survival minigame that changes with each night. So let's start with Monday. On Monday is where we obviously learn the basics of how the gameplay works. Instead of having to survive until an arbitrary time, you have to do a large task. Once it's done, the night is over, meaning nights can be finished in 3 minutes or take an hour, depending on how terrible you are at micromanagement. Which, by the way, this game is not for people who are easily overwhelmed. Holy shit, the amount of things you have to memorize and keep track of and react to is batshit insane. However, this game does a really good job of easing you into every new threat it throws at you. I highly recommend you play with tutorials on your first playthrough, as it helped me out a lot to understand what I needed to do. If I didn't have these tutorials on, never in my life would I have figured out how to deal with some of these animatronics. Before I talk about the animatronics that you see on Monday, let's talk about the task that you have to complete every night. You are given a Tamagotchi-like toy called Pal Percy. On this toy, there are 3 possible minigames that you can play. Each time you complete a minigame, you will be given a specific amount of points. Once you collect enough points, the night will end. As the nights go on, in addition to all the new threats that are added, you will also have to gain an additional amount of points. Just a little something to make this game feel even more stressful. Also, if at any point you go without completing a minigame for too long, you will die. The first of the 3 games is a feeding game. There are 3 possible lanes that food can be dropped down, and you have to move your character, which is Percy, under the food to collect them. After collecting 3 or 4 pieces depending on what the game told you to grab, you will gain your points. The second minigame is a watering minigame. You have to shake a bottle of water up and down to get the water to fill a bowl. Once it's full, you'll get your points. And the third minigame is the play minigame, my favorite of the 3. Percy will move into one of 3 lanes. You will have to move a ball into the same lane and throw it to Percy. After doing this around 5 times, you collect your points. Now, you're unable, most of the time, to do the same minigame multiple times in a row, forcing you to become efficient at all of them. I'm not totally sure how the algorithm for deciding when you can replay a minigame you've already played works, but typically from what I noticed, it seems that once you play a game, it disables. Then, when you complete the other 2 games, it will be enabled again. But keep in mind, that's how I think it works, and I could be and probably am wrong. The other tool you get is a camera system. Pretty basic stuff. You can see where the animatronics are. FNAF. Let's talk about the animatronics. The 2 animatronics on this night are Charlie Cat and Mother Moose. They both work the same way with a small difference. Both characters will move around the cameras until they enter one of your 2 vents. If you look to the left and rights of your office, you'll be able to see these vents. Now's a good time to mention that I was playing this game with the additional cues setting enabled. I'm not sure what changes if that setting is off, so if your gameplay has some inaccuracies with mine, that setting I turned on is probably why. I also had the colorblind setting on because I am, and there's a lot of color related segments in this game. It really usually just adds symbols on top of colors, but whatever. Where was I? Oh yeah, Charlie Cat and Mother Moose will come into your vents and poke their heads out to look at you. When they do, depending on which one of them it is, you will either have to raise your Pal Percy or your camera. If Charlie peeks into your office, you need to drop whatever tool you have up and look at him. If you don't, you die. If Mother Moose peeks in at you, you have to make sure that you are holding up either your Pal Percy or your camera. It doesn't matter which one, and if you don't, you die. Pretty simple, but really gets you used to the buttons you need to memorize, since one of the only things I had a consistent problem with in this game was remembering what buttons did what. It's not nearly as horrifying as FNAF Ultimate Custom Night keybinds, but it still confused me personally a lot. After gathering all the points you need, you move on to the post-Monday minigame. In this minigame, your only threat is Charlie Cat. The task you have to complete in this night is selling all of the animatronics in an online auction. Doing so is really easy. Each animatronic has a price that our boss wants us to sell it for. If a buyer isn't offering the exact price we want for it, you click decline and enter a random number the game generates. Every time you decline, the offer will be raised by $100. Once the number is correct, you click accept and move on to the next animatronic. While you're doing this, however, occasionally you will hear Charlie approaching. When you do, all you have to do is hide under your desk until he walks away, then come back up and continue selling. Something this game does that I really like is treat these post-night minigames as a boss battle. Once you sell half the animatronics, Charlie enters his enraged state, just like when you bring a boss's health down halfway in a game like Terraria. When Charlie Cat is enraged, he will come to find you more frequently, you will have less time to react to him, and he will stay in your room longer. On top of that, you will begin getting pop-ups on your computer that you will have to close out of before you can continue auctioning the animatronics. Once selling all of them off, Monday is over. On Tuesday, we're thrown back into the office with a new threat being introduced, Farmer Felix. Sporadically throughout the night, he will begin walking outside of the large window in your office. A newly appeared board is displayed in the top left corner of your screen with 4 colors on it. When Felix walks past, his eyes will glow one of these 4 colors, and you will have to select which color his eyes are on the board before he gets to the other side of your window. Overall, this is super simple to deal with, but on top of everything else you will soon be dealing with, he could very easily become something you forget about. Moving on to Tuesday's post-night minigame, we find ourselves in front of an arcade machine. The task we have to complete here is beating the high score of 6,000 points. You control a small rocket that shoots lasers. Occasionally, UFOs will drop from the top of the screen and we'll have to shoot them. Green UFOs don't do anything special, but red UFOs will shoot lasers at us too. We start with 3 lives, and if at any point our life drops to 0, we die. There are also 3 power-ups that have a chance of dropping. One makes us shoot faster, another gives us a shield, and the final gives us 1 life. The boss of this night is Mother Moose. You will have to listen incredibly closely for 2 distinct sound cues to play. When you hear them, you can pause the game and turn around. Then flash your camera to scare Mother Moose away. If you don't do this in time, you die. That sounds pretty easy, but the arcade game makes more noise than a bombing. So hearing Mother Moose can actually be pretty difficult at times. Once you reach the halfway point, she becomes enraged. While enraged, she will attack more frequently and take 2 camera flashes instead of 1, meaning you have to react way faster. In addition, asteroids and yellow UFOs are added to the arcade game. Asteroids are really large. They take way more shots to kill than a UFO, but move very slowly. Yellow UFOs can move horizontally in addition to moving vertically. They don't shoot lasers though, so they're not really an issue. Once you reach 6,000 points, it's on to Wednesday. Wednesday introduces a new tool and a new animatronic. The new tool is your door. Hold clicking it will lock it. This is important because of the new threat, Percy Poodle, the main antagonist of this game. Percy will make his way down your hall throughout the night. When he gets to your door, he will start pounding on it and you'll have to lock the door until he gives up. In addition, a very small version of Percy will quickly and randomly open your door and peek in. When he does, just close the door quickly and he'll leave. Pretty simple and easy to understand mechanics, but with how difficult the other characters are starting to get, this on top of all of it is where this game starts to get really stressful. Now let's talk about the Wednesday post-night minigame. In this minigame, your task is repairing the power. You have to do this for each room in the building through a panel. Once you choose a room, you will have to play one of a few selection of minigames. All of them are pretty simple, and I'm sure you'll be able to figure out how they play just by looking at the screen. Each room requires you to complete 2 of these minigames before the power to them comes back online. The boss of this night is a Rowan Rat, a character that will be introduced next night. Throughout the night, you will hear a distinct sound cue. When you do, you have to turn around and flash your flashlight at him. Behind you, there are 4 large holes in the wall, and there's no telling which one he'll pop out of. Once you flash him, he quickly leaves and you're free to continue. Once you restore power to 3 of the 6 rooms, Rowan becomes enraged. While enraged, he will attack more frequently, you will have less time to flash him, and he will require you to flash him twice. After flashing him the first time, he will crawl back into his hole and appear out of another one. Out of all the post-night minigames, this one is definitely my favorite. The flow of how it plays, mixed with it probably being the least stressful, is really refreshing with how fast my heart was typically beating throughout the game. After getting the power to all the rooms back online, it's on to Thursday. Before Thursday night, however, when walking out of the building, Nick finds a tape, and you get the choice of whether or not you want to pick it up. As far as I'm aware, picking it up doesn't change the gameplay, and there's not multiple endings to this game. If you pick up the tape, you get some lore and foreshadowing. If you don't, you just move on. I picked up the tape because I'm a Chad gamer. Putting in the tape, it doesn't seem to play anything, so Nick goes to bed. But as soon as he leaves, the tape begins to play. We're told that the Pal Percy toy is being recalled. We're told it poses significant threats to children, but it's not elaborated on. People are told to return the toy to whichever store they bought it from, but since Nick went to bed and never saw this, he will still continue to use his pal Percy during the nights. On Thursday night, we're introduced to the previously mentioned Rowan Rat, and we get a new tool for us to stress over. This night was by far the most confusing for me, since I didn't understand what the tutorial was telling me, but let me explain. In your cameras, you will find that you have a new subsection. It's a motion detector for cameras 1 through 4. Which are the cameras for each corner of the establishment. You will need to check these motion detectors throughout the night to see if Rowan Rat has moved. If he moves to a specific camera, which you can tell because the camera in the motion sensor section will turn red, you will have to go to the actual corresponding camera and use one of your shocks on Rowan to reset him. In addition to this, if that wasn't enough to make you want to die from anxiety, that small Percy that opens your door will now also occasionally spawn in one of your cameras. When he does, you'll have to find him and navigate to the camera he's on and stare at him until he goes away. If you don't do this in time, he will disable the camera system, stopping you from being able to shock Rowan, which will obviously lead to you dying. Now for the part that should have been obvious that I didn't understand. The tutorial states that you need to watch out for an alert icon on the E UI. When you press E in game, this opens up your camera. When you see that alert, that's how you know that you need to go find the mini Percy on your cameras. I thought this meant that the alert would appear on my camera. That it does not. Instead, it appears right above the little E button in the corner of your screen. Again, I'm really dumb for not figuring this out immediately, but this is hands down the most stressful mechanic the game has introduced so far. And in mixture with everything else you have to deal with and the constant overwhelming noise that you'll be hearing, it gets really fucking anxiety inducing. Don't believe me about the noise? This is what the night sounds like throughout its entirety. Yeah, it's pretty ass. But after completing your task, we can move on to the Thursday post-night minigame. In this minigame, your task is fixing Farmer Felix. After opening up his head, you're greeted with 4 small sub-minigames to complete. Each is pretty simple, you can do them in any order, but I did them from top to bottom. The first one is the gear game. You just have to match up each of 4 colored gears to the small brackets. Do this 3 times and the game is finished. The second minigame sucks really hard, mainly because I'm stupid and didn't understand it right away. You're given 2 boards, each with the beginning and end of a sentence. You have to swap through different options until you have a complete sentence that makes sense. After doing that a few times, the game is finished. I really hated this one since it made no sense to me and took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out. You can watch my full playthrough on my second channel, Dexter Black, by the way. Before talking about the other 2 minigames, the boss of this night surprisingly isn't Farmer Felix. Instead, it's 2 small Percy poodles. While you're working on Felix, occasionally you hear a sound cue. When you do, you'll have to back up and find one or both of the poodles in the room and click on them to make them go away. Once you complete 2 of the 4 sub-minigames, the poodles become enraged. While enraged, they will appear more frequently and require you to click them twice rather than just once. Not too bad, honestly. The third minigame consists of spinning a crank on the bottom of the screen to fill this white bar. If you wind the crank too much, Felix will overheat. I didn't let this happen, so I don't know what happens if you do. I'd have to imagine you either die or you have to wait a while to be able to continue. When you're not cranking, the white bar will slowly decrease. Once the bar is full, the game finishes. The final minigame is just Simon Says. Beat a few levels, and it's finished. And with that, we're done with the post night and can move on to Friday night. Friday night adds nothing new to the gameplay loop, just increases the difficulty of every character we've seen thus far. After completing your tasks, we can move on to the final post-night minigame. Friday's post-night minigame is us fixing up Percy. We open up his stomach and play 3 small minigames. The first is just matching these colored knobs to the colors of their corresponding wires. Do this 3 times and we move on to the next. The second game requires us to flip 8 switches. Every few seconds, any number of them can unflip. and we'll have to flip them again. Do this until the bar fills up, and we move on to the next. The final game requires us to watch 3 squares. The moment they turn green, we have to quickly click on them. Do this a few times, and we can finally get to Percy's battery. I have no idea why there's so many security measures to get to this point, and why they're all so simple a toddler could perform them. It seems pretty counterintuitive. But before anything else happens, Percy's battery begins to smoke. We call our boss and tell him what's happening. Our boss says we either need to replace his battery or find a substitute battery. Not knowing what to do, Nick puts the pal Percy inside of Percy in place of his battery. And it works! Hooray! And with that, the credits roll. In all honesty, this game is super unique and enjoyable. I really like how each night feels different from every other, and how... Wait, what the fuck? Oh yeah, that's right, baby. Final boss fight time. The pal Percy took over Percy's body and spread wires throughout the building. We run and hide in a storage closet. We find an early version of a pal Percy, and luckily for us, it's hooked up to the power. Just like in previous nights, we have to play 3 minigames to fill up the bar. When we fill up the bar, we will be given a charge. We're told that after getting 5 charges, we'll beat pal. Since this is an early version, the 3 minigames are different from the ones we've gotten used to. Let's quickly go over the 3 new ones. The first game requires us to match up 3 rows of shapes. Pretty easy, but trust me, with how stressful this night gets, even something as simple as this task can become a nightmare. The second game requires us to move Percy through a maze. This one is my favorite as it was always the least stressful for me to complete. The third game makes me want to get bucked by a fucking horse, however. This game requires you to catch a number of fish. This game is only stressful because of how long it takes. When you press space, your line will slowly drop to the bottom of the screen and then slowly come all the way back up. I hate this game so much. Along with that, all of the antagonists are different on this night, so throw all the knowledge you've memorized thus far out the fucking window. As the night goes on, more characters will be added to the night, but rather than explain exactly when each character is introduced in order, I'll just pretend like they're all active right out of the gate, like they would be at the end of the night, and explain them one by one. It makes most sense to talk about the pal Percy that we created first. In the closet, there are these 2 monitors. Occasionally, these monitors will tell you to find me. This is pal Percy giving you direct orders. When you see this message, you have to open up your camera and find which room Percy is in. When you do, you will see him showing you a toy. You will then have to go to one of the other cameras to find whichever specific toy he showed. Once you find it and click on it, his attack is over. This alone is stressful enough, but we are just getting started. Next, let's talk about this stupid fucking little Percy. He has 2 different attacks. Let's go over his most simple one first. In the closet, you can see these 2 rolling carts. At any time, you can drag them out. If the little Percy appears, you have to use the cart that's on whatever side he's on and slam it into him, which literally kills it, so I guess there's just multiple of these fucks. His second attack thankfully has a cue. You'll be able to tell he's attacking because your vision will turn to horseshit. When it does, you have to find him on the cameras and stare at him. If you don't, he will disable your ability to move the rolling carts. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what this next enemy is, but occasionally you will see and hear banging on either side of the closet. When you do, you have to hold the rolling cart in front of said wall until the banging stops. We're not done yet. Don't worry, there's still way more to keep track of. By the way, did I tell you that there's a time limit this time? Yeah. If you don't complete the minigames on the PAL fast enough, the PAL itself will fucking kill you. This game will not give my nuts a second to breathe, just constant quaking for those poor little guys.
Trust me, when you fire this game up, your little fucking nuts are gonna start quaking, buddy. Your little nuts are gonna be quaking.
But that's still not enough for this game. No, let's make it even more stressful. These little tiny pals the game calls roaches will climb out of the hole in the ceiling and will sometimes show up in your vision. When they do, you have to drag them quickly to the bottom of your screen to throw them away. If you don't, you fucking die. Do you think we're done? Yeah? Well, you're fucking wrong. Not yet. The pal Percy that we substituted for Percy's battery will sometimes crawl out of him and go to one of the corner rooms. Thank God he gives a sound cue for when he does this. When he does, you'll have to open your camera and find which room he's in and shock him. This night is so fucking loud that half of the time I missed his sound cue. I died more to this guy than anyone else on this night. Still not done yet, there's even more. At some points in the night, Percy will charge full speed at your door. When he does, you have to hold the door closed until he stops banging on it. And finally, that's it. After getting all 5 charges, we finally beat the game. Psych, fucking idiot. Pal is really mad, and you're forced to get one last charge while even more mechanics are thrown at you on top of what you already have to deal with. Now, if you look at those screens again in the closet, sometimes Percy's stupid face will appear. When it does, all you have to do is click on it. Don't forget, this is on top of every other mechanic I've just explained, as well as you still having to do those minigames and that stupid fish one that takes 12 years to complete. Ready for another goddamn mechanic? I sure am. Again, our genius battery solution will occasionally come into the closet and take up about 80% of our screen. When he does, we have to play a quick minigame with him. He shows 3 cups and puts a ball under one of them. The cups shuffle around very fucking slowly, and we have to pick the cup the ball is under, and then he'll go away. Again, this is on top of everything else we have to deal with. And once you get this final charge, do you think the game's over? Nope. Instead, the game says, fuck you. Survive for 60 more seconds as we increase the difficulties on the animatronics by about 136,000%. Lamau, sick idiot. But after those 60 seconds, it's over. And that's really it this time. I promise. This night took up, I'm not joking, about 50% of my playtime in this game. Holy shit, it's so fucking hard. I actually almost gave up, but thankfully, I got over the major salt I was throwing and beat it. If you want to watch me get pretty salty at this section, again, you can see my full playthrough on Dexter Black. After finishing, Pal Percy comes to the door and tells us that we can be his best friend forever. Nick says, and then Pal gets all pissy and says he's gonna kill us. But before he can, a wrecking ball slams through the wall, which knocks Pal out of Percy's body. With Pal no longer having a body to control, he's pretty useless and lies on the floor like a sad sack of lard. Our boss calls us over as the building gets demolished and the game finally comes to a close.
A plot twist is a literary technique that introduces a radical change in the direction or expected outcome of the plot in a work of fiction. Now tell me, can you think of a horror game that pulls off an insane twist? Maybe Resident Evil 8 in its crazy twist comes to mind. Now let me ask you another question. Can you name a FNAF game with a crazy twist? A twist so cool you have to sit back and think, wow, that was pretty sick. The game I'll be covering today has one of those twists, and I'm incredibly excited to share with you the amazing experience I had while playing Showman's The Awakening. For those of you already familiar with this game, you may know that it actually has a game that came before it. Kinda. Years ago, the same developer released a game called Phobia: The Awakening, using the Wiggles as inspiration for the characters. Well, turns out the dev wanted to remake their game using their own original characters to continue the story, so now here we are with Showman's. This may lead you to ask the question, if I've already played Phobia, is there even a point to playing Showman's? And trust me, this is a question I've asked myself. Originally, I saw people asking me to play Showman's. I played Phobia on my second channel, Dexter Black, not knowing at the time that Showman's was a thing, learning soon after the first episode went up that it was in fact a thing. So I questioned, does it even bother to play it? Well, recently I've made the decision to do exactly that and give Showman's a try. And let's just say, if you've played Phobia, play Showman's. It's everything Phobia is and more. So join me as we quake our asses into Showman's The Awakening. In Showman's, we play as a guy named Mark Ward, an employee of Showman's Pizza Place. And in night 1, we're introduced to 2 of the animatronics that will be trying to insert their fingers into orifices we'd really prefer they keep their grubby little hands away from. But before we can talk about them, we should talk about the tools at our disposal. Something really interesting you'll notice about the office is that you're able to look everywhere. Up, down, left, right, behind you, below you. It's actually really cool. It's really the first thing I noticed jumping into the game. The reason for this is actually because Showman's wasn't created in ClickTeam Fusion like most FNAF games are. Instead, it was created in Blender, which is what most FNAF games use to model their characters, and is something I also had no idea could be used to program a game. So that was pretty cool learning for the first time. Anyways, you'll see 2 large hallways on your left and right, which you can light up using buttons on your desk. In front of you is this lady. Hey, hottie. She's not hot. I'm not even gonna lie. She's not even bad. Who we'll be talking about later in the video. And if you look behind you, you'll be able to see the clock where you can tell how much longer of the night you have to get through. Oh yeah, and of course, there's cameras, because it really wouldn't be a FNAF game without those. With that out of the way, now we can talk about the first two threats this game introduces, Johnny and Harry. Now I know, those names aren't very normal sounding when thinking in terms of Five Nights at Freddy's, when usually we're having names so utterly stupid you'd be forced to think they were a fictional character. But no, these two are still robots, and you still cannot have intercourse with them, so please remove all thoughts of that nature from your head for the remainder of this video. Johnny and Harry both start from the show stage and do the exact same thing. Johnny will move through the cameras to your right hallway, and Harry will move through your left hallway, where they will then enter what I'm going to be calling their attack mode. During their attack mode, they have 5 phases. Each phase has a sound cue, and it's important that you're listening for them. With each phase, they'll move closer and closer towards your office, with the final phase having them walk up to you. Obviously, you can check their distance by flashing the light at them, and by doing so, you will also temporarily stun them in place. However, I would highly recommend you don't turn the lights on when they're in the hall, as I personally feel it's much more efficient to just let them attack you so they can piss off as fast as possible. Every time Johnny or Harry enters a new phase, their eyes will glow for a short time after their sound cue plays. So when you hear it, you can just turn in the direction to double check that they've moved. On these earlier nights, you really don't have to be super careful with them. Flashing lights and not counting sound cues isn't really important since they're your only threats. So I'll get into a bit of a better strategy for them later on. However, once they enter your office, you'll have to quickly throw on a spare mask to fool them into walking away, just like the animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And that's really it. Night 1 is pretty damn easy, really just introducing the basics needed to understand 2 very important mechanics. After beating Night 1, we see a cutscene, something that was not originally in Phobia. In it, we meet with the founder of Showman's, Jason Baker. He confirms with us that only Johnny and Harry were active on our shift, and we confirm. Apparently, this should not be happening, and it's a known issue. So that's good at least. Jason tells us that a previous employee mentioned more characters moving, which in all honesty doesn't bode well for my anus, given the fact we still have 5 more nights of this to deal with. But we get our things and go home for the night, only to come back to work in the morning. Night 2 introduces 2 new animatronics, and let me tell you, this is where the game starts to show how much of a pain in the dick it's about to become. The first character we should talk about is the fine shite sitting in front of us, Peggy. Peggy reminds me a lot of the scrapped animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, just given the fact of the way she moves subtly like them. She also reminds me a lot of what Anissa's husband really doesn't want her to do to him. Whenever you're not looking at her, whether that be checking on the cameras, looking at the hallways, or checking the clock behind you, Peggy has a chance to advance phases. You'll be able to see her start by looking down and slowly transfer through the phases until she's ready to attack. In order to reset her, all you have to do is flip the breaker switch on your desk to shock her and she'll reset. But be careful not to just spam this lever over and over, because every time you shock her, she becomes more aggressive, leading to the end of nights becoming incredibly stressful due to how fast she'll be attacking you. Cap'n Cackle is the other menace introduced on Night 2. He is this game's Foxy. If you couldn't tell by looking at him, he's a pirate, just like Foxy. Also, he looks like he's cracked out of his fucking mind, zooted to the fucking moon. Seriously, look at this geeked out motherfucker. Holy shit, bro hasn't slept in 18 days. Look at those eye bags. What the hell happened? Stop looking at me, dude. Tell me that guy doesn't smoke crystal meth. Look at those fucking eyes. What are you doing? Hey. That's the face I make when I'm about to eat ass, bro. Anyways, similar to Foxy, he'll have several phases on camera 6. Watching him will slow his progression and even in some cases make him go backwards. If he happens to leave camera 6, he doesn't do exactly what Foxy does. Instead, he'll just start moving through your cameras like any other character would, albeit very quickly. If you manage to stare at him in one of those other cameras, he will go back to camera 6, where you can continue oogling at him to make him stay put. Both Peggy and Cap'n Cackle work very well together, and the same goes for Johnny and Harry. We have two other central characters left to introduce, and you'll notice that those two also work very well in tandem with one another. This is something I need to give this game praise for. It is so incredibly good at introducing new mechanics in a way that's stressful, yet engaging and fun. You introduce Peggy, a character that moves when you don't look at her, and Cap'n Cackle, another character who moves when you're not looking at him. And because these two characters are in different places, it forces you to learn how to balance them together. God, it's so fucking cool. Similar to last night, this night also has a cutscene after completion. In it, we're seen walking to the exit of the building. We hear a noise and quickly turn around to see an unknown animatronic staring back at us. It stares for a while before turning around and walking away. This is a character we haven't yet seen. Even the characters we'll be talking about on later nights can be seen on the cameras all the time, but this one can't. Keep him in the back of your head as he'll become important later. For now, let's move on to Night 3. Night 3 only introduces one character, but it also introduces another incredibly important mechanic, that being your vents. The animatronic introduced on Night 3 is Tony the Chef. He will enter your vents. You'll notice on your cameras that you have 3 camera vents. Tony can enter 2 of them, those being either camera 12 or camera 11. In these vents, he will have multiple phases he will move through before attempting to enter your office. With each movement, a very quiet sound cue will play, a stark contrast to Phobia, where the sound cue was very noticeable. By double-clicking on a vent cam, you can lock the vent. Locking a vent uses no power because the game has no power to begin with. Praise God. Once a vent is closed, you can keep it closed as long as you'd like, with no consequences. The only downside is that you can only close one vent at a time. So this night really isn't all too different from Night 2. Well, now's the time when I want to talk about sound cue counting with Johnny and Harry, as it's this night where you'll probably want to start getting used to doing that. As I mentioned earlier, Johnny and Harry each have 5 different phases in your hallway. The first is when they initially enter the hallway. You'll be able to tell because you can see their eyes in the hallway for a brief moment, and because you'll be able to hear their big ol' feet stomping around, kind of like I want Toy Chica to stomp on my testicles. Once one of them enters your hallway, you can stop checking on them and focus on listening. Start a mental count of 3 in your head. All sounds in this game are directional, so that really helps. Whenever you hear footsteps on either side of you, decrease that side's number by 1. Once the counter reaches 0, you know that the next time you hear footsteps from that side is when they'll walk into your office to attack. Okay, 4 left, or 3 till he's at the last stage. 2 left until he hits door. Okay, 1 more. And he's at the line. He's walking the thin line. 1 more. I want to see how close I can cut it. Hi. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that. Doing this while they're both attacking you at the same time can get a little overwhelming, and on later nights they do like to attack together a lot. But if you can nail this counting strategy, they really shouldn't be too much of an issue. After completing Night 3, we get to watch another lovely cutscene. In it, we're looking through the factory for who the fuck knows what. We open a crate and find a Johnny plush inside. Seeing this toy seems to trigger some primal instinct in us, and we pass the fuck out. Honestly, bro, probably not the greatest place to lose consciousness. I'm not even gonna front. We awake in another room, only to look up and see Showman. Scared as shit, we wake up from our slumber only to realize it was a short dream we had after we had passed out. There is clearly something mentally wrong with our dear, beloved Mark. We just have to figure out what it is. Night 4 introduces the man himself, Showman. Showman works in perfect tandem with Tony, also attacking your vents. Although, unlike Tony, Showman can only attack your camera 13 vent. However, he also fucking loves to do this at the same time that Tony is jumping penis first into your vents. Showman only has 3 phases in the vent before attacking, so notably faster than Tony. So while both of them are attacking your vent, you really have to be counting their positions to figure out whose vent you need to close first, because once again, you can only have one closed at a time. If one of those fuckers get into your office, they're gonna crank that soldier boy and clock you in the jaw. I'm just gonna go ahead and put this on and hope to God. Okay, so it didn't work. I couldn't tell which one was closer, bro. I thought the guy I had blocked off was closer. I couldn't tell. All in all, each character is incredibly easy to deal with. But because of how perfectly they all work together, it can lead to an incredibly stressful experience trying to play against all of them at the same time. However, never at any point throughout my playthrough did I feel like this game was unfair or that RNG was too much of a factor. This game, dare I say it, might have borderline perfect video game balancing. After completing night 4, of course, we get another cutscene. This one taking place before we go to work for the night. Before we enter our car, we get a call from Jason, telling us not to come in to work tonight. He says things are getting too dangerous and that it would be unsafe for us to go through our shift. We agree to not go in tonight, except the plot twist is that I fucking lied and we're gonna go in anyways, because we hate authority like a 16-year-old white boy from the suburbs. On night 5, we get a call from the phone guy, and let me tell you, he is absolutely pissed that we decided to come in for the night. He explains that anything in that building that moves will be demolished in the morning. He tells us to do whatever it is we're trying to do and get out, because they're not going to send anyone into the building to get us out. Other than that, Night 5 is exactly what you'd think it is, just a much more difficult version of Night 4, really testing your reflexes and especially your nerve control. But on this night is when I have to bring up really the only problem I have with this game. Volume. This game is actually the loudest fucking game on planet Earth. Holy shit. Everything makes noise, and it makes a damn lot of it at that. There are typically ambient sounds in FNAF games, but for the love of God, this game plays intense music throughout most of the night, and it is loud as dick and balls. Want to hear the best part? As you get closer and closer to 6 a.m., the music adds more components and gets even fucking louder! This really doesn't help when so much of my strategy revolved around listening to sound cues. It's fucking crazy just how loud this game is! Now granted, was this something that was intended? Most definitely. And I'm not even saying that it's a bad thing, because obviously, inherently, it isn't. I was still able to beat the game just fine, and I feel like most other people would be able to beat it just fine as well. But this is something I couldn't not talk about. I love this game, but of course I'm not going to always be able to glaze everything I see, and I think this is truly the only flaw this game has. But hey, who gives a fuck about what I think? Let's move on to the cutscene, baby. Let me just say, I love this cutscene. I think everything about it is great. The pacing, the acting, everything is just so good that I don't want to ruin it by just talking about it. I'd much rather just show you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, put your hands together for our birthday boy!
Just leave me alone.
Well, god damn. We really should have listened and not come back, huh? So, it's safe to say that our pal Mark really got fucked here. Something I think is actually really cool. It's fairly common for FNAF games to have a character die in them, most commonly a phone guy, but to actually see it like this is just awesome. Going into night 6, we actually get a cutscene before the night happens rather than after it. In it, we play as the phone guy going into the building to get Mark. After a bit of searching, we find him, and once again, I think it'll just sit much better with you if you just watch it for yourself.
Mark? Is that you?
You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You should have done that shit. Oh, fuck.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
What do I do? Keep yourself together.
Are you fucking me? That's right. Turns out Mark isn't dead, but is just kind of possessed. Phone guy, or his real name, Matthew, runs back to the office with Mark on the pursuit, and Night 6 begins. Night 6 consists of 4 threats, 2 of which we've already covered, Cap and Cackle and Peggy. However, you'll immediately notice that they both look pretty fucked up. Why is this? Well, turns out by demolish the animatronics, they really meant set the whole fucking building on fire. Because once again, it wouldn't be a FNAF game without a fire, right? Oh yeah, and of course, they are way more aggressive. Another thing you'll notice immediately is that we're stuck with the flashlight instead of the building lights. And let me tell you, as I'm sure you can already see, it is dark as fucking shit in this goddamn building with no lights. Of course, your flashlight has power, so you'll have to use it sparingly. You'll need to use it to check the hallways and to even be able to see Peggy in front of you. This honestly adds a whole new level of fear to this game, mainly with Peggy. I never got very good at telling when she switched positions, and to now have it where I can't even naturally see her just added a whole new fear factor, and I love it. The other 2 threats are the animatronic we saw in the post-Night 2 cutscene, dubbed The Figure, and Mark himself, which is honestly one of the coolest twists I've ever seen. Having the character you've been playing as the whole time flip like this, it's insane. It's honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. Let's start with Mark. Mark works the same as Harry and Johnny, except I feel like he's even easier. He can attack from either of the 2 halls, and unlike Johnny and Harry, you cannot see his eyes. He's also much, much quieter. The reason I think he's easier? Well, you don't have to do any mental counting to tell when he's going to attack, as he has a totally unique sound cue for when he enters your office. So as long as you've got fast reflexes, it's really just a game of waiting to hear the sound cue and putting on the mask. The final new threat on this night is, of course, The Figure. He takes the place of Tony and Showman attacking your vents. He can attack any of the 3 you have, since there won't be 2 characters going for the vents at the same time. Again, I honestly feel like this is easier than Tony and Showman. Of course, The Figure is fucking light speed fast when choosing and climbing through vents, so as long as you've got fast reflexes, it really shouldn't be too much of a challenge. Ironically enough, the main challenge I had with this night was not the 2 new threats, but the 2 returning threats, Peggy and Cap and Cackle. Again, these 2 have the best synergy out of any of the characters in this game, so bringing them back for Night 6 was a no-brainer. Really, the actual problem for me was Peggy. The sheer speed at which she moves is enough to make you shit in your britches, and nearing the end of the night, she will be moving at a speed Usain Bolt would be creaming his pants over. But if you can control your nerves for long enough, you'll complete Night 6 and move on to the post-night cutscene. Matthew runs as fast as he can to the exit, only to find it locked. Turning around, we see Mark, slowly creeping up on us like the booty cheek creep freak. The screen cuts to black, and we're left with only the screams of Matthew echoing throughout the pizzeria, and Showman's The Awakening comes to a close. Kind of. We're not exactly done just yet. There's actually 6 other secrets this game has to offer, that being the secret tapes. On each night, you will be able to find one of these tapes and play them later. On night 1, if you check camera 9, you'll be able to see a tape on the shelf in the top left corner. Night 2's tape is located in one of the drawers in your office. Night 3's tape is located on camera 3 on a shelf in the bottom left corner. Night 4's tape is located on camera 2 at the top of the screen. Night 5's tape is located on camera 5 on a high shelf in the middle of the camera, and Night 6 tape is conveniently located directly in front of you on the desk. Hey there, post-scripting Deku here. Turns out I'm fucking wrong. These are not the locations of the tapes on every night. Turns out every single night, besides the 6th one, has a random location for each tape, each being on a different camera. This was just the order that I had. So, yeah. Sorry about that. These tapes, as I'm sure you could have guessed, go over some extra bits of lore to help us piece together the story. And this is the part of the video where I say, I'm very sorry guys, I'm terrible at talking about story, but I'm going to try my best here. Tape 1 shows all of the characters on stage singing the happy birthday song to a kid whose name isn't explicitly said. We can see by the date of the tape that this takes place in 1995. Tape 2 seems to be a sort of log from Jason, explaining his reasoning for why he believes the characters are acting so hostile. Originally, when they were first being built, they attempted to add an advanced facial recognition system that would allow the characters to actually see and think for themselves. Although the system never ended up working as intended, they wiped the idea from their systems. Well, guess what, fucker? Turns out they really didn't, and Jason seems to think that this is the reason the characters are acting the way they are. Jason makes a brief mention of an unnamed him and questions if one of his employees are potentially tampering with the characters. I'm guessing that him is referring to either Mark or the figure. Tape 3 shows two guys working on Tony. They're talking about how these robots should be scrapped because of how old they are, and then the guy in the back says a sentence that I literally cannot for the fucking life of me decipher. Like many other things in this game, the static that plays during these cutscenes is so fucking loud I can't hear anything except it. I'll play what he says here, and if any of you guys can decipher it, please let me know in the comments.
That company's been up and dealed with recently. Why?
Tape 4 is one of my favorites. It really gives off the FNAF VHS style that I really like. A maintenance worker is running a test on Cap'n Cackle. It doesn't quite go as planned as he bugs out, so they restart him and then get attacked. Afterwards, showing the lifeless corpse of the employee laying on the floor in front of Cap'n Cackle. It's just such an unnerving moment to see this in person. Usually when it comes to FNAF games and death, you don't see it. So seeing it in a game like this is really unnerving, and it adds a sort of realism to the actual events that are taking place. Tape 5 is probably my favorite of all the tapes, being the most terrifying in my opinion. In it, we're in the perspective of what sounds like a young girl. Hiding under a table, we hear a scream from another room. Shortly after, Johnny walks into the room and starts to look around. The girl accidentally makes a noise, and when she looks back up, Johnny is staring at her. And he quickly goes for the kill. This is such a fucking horrific and terrifying situation to think about being in, and I think that's why I like it so much. Just imagining being in the same situation makes my hair stand. Tape number 6 is an odd one. We appear to be being spoken to by the figure. He tells us that the birthday we saw earlier was Timmy's 12th birthday. He had 2 of his friends with him that day, and it was a party made specifically for him. Then we see 3 drawings of his friends, all of them sad. The figure appears in front of us and slowly glances up before the tape ends. Again, as I've previously stated, lore analysis is not my strong suit at all, so I really can't even begin to imagine what anything here means. I know robots mad and robots kill, and I think that is neat enough. Overall, Showman's The Awakening is such a big step up from Phobia, and while I still do love that game, I think I love Showman's even more. Amazing graphical upgrades, fantastic cutscenes, and a gameplay loop that's so fun, difficult, yet still not frustrating. This game really has it all, and I truly think it's a fantastic game to play if you're at all interested in horror games. Even if you're not a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan, I still think you should give it a try. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that reimagining this game from Phobia wasn't really worth it? Let me know in the comments below. In my Five Nights at Candy's video, I asked you guys if you thought Five Nights at Candy still holds up today. My favorite comment is this one by the Phantom Split. It's too long for me to get into right here, but I think you should pause to read it. The question of this video is, what is your favorite gameplay mechanic from any FNAF game? official or fan-made, and why. With the question of the video being asked, I've been Dexter, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!